Hello, welcome to Cinema Savvy, and welcome to our review discussion video on everything that has been announced at the Disney Investor Day 2020. We don't know how long this stream is going to go on for. We're not capping ourselves a time limit. But suffice to say, this is probably the most elaborate plan we've ever worked off. We need a plan for this one. I have a written document in front of me. It is 2 pages long. But we're going to try and comb through it as quick as we can, but we do still want to get our opinions across on it. There might be some controversial opinions on there. We don't know. We haven't really discussed many of these at length, actually, so this is going to be really cool to discuss. But just strap yourselves in. I think this might be a long one, but before we go into it proper, we'll just quickly go over the socials.
Absolutely, guys. So this is very last minute. We know this happened on Thursday night. We'll get into the sort of origins of it, I guess we could say, in a short while. But as usual, guys, comment below with your thoughts on this. It's not really your thoughts on Disney. Well, just comment along with us. We want your thoughts on stuff we're going to talk about. I've already got a comment from Dave. Brought a packed lunch to sleeping bag. This is going to be a long one. This is, Carl, I'm in it for the long haul. Long haul is one way of saying it. But yes, do comment along, do like, share, comment, subscribe. This is going to be a really fun one today because this is the most in-depth announcement maybe of my lifetime from a company. And I think I know why, which we'll address pretty quickly. But as Chris mentioned, the socials, to find out when we're going to do videos, no matter how short or late notice, Facebook, Cinema Savvy, Twitter @cinema_savvy, and of course, YouTube notifications on if you want to get that alert when we do go live, because we're going to get into this. We're not going to beat around the bush. We're going to get in. So Thursday was the appropriately titled worst announcement description title we could ever guess, maybe. The Disney Investor Day 2020. So we kind of spoke about this a couple of days ago. I said to you, like, oh, by the way, Disney, Bob Iger has, people call it IgerCon. So Bob Iger will, like, every quarter, he'll have a call with his investors, and he'll be like, there's a new Star Wars TV series, or XYZ is going to film in March, or we're going to get this director on board, and it happens every year. There'll be an announcement out of nowhere. And I think we had The Mandalorian announced at one of these, the Game of Thrones guys trilogy that didn't go well. It's the first call of announcement. Is if we don't want it at a convention event, we'll do it. And it's always a dial-in. You press the link to go into the meeting to hear on the phone. Now, I went out on Thursday night because I was like, okay, I want to watch this, but I'm just going to go out first. So I ended up having a bit too much to drink. I did not know this was a video. I think I even messaged you the other day. I was like, yeah, it's never videos. It's always just a phone call type listening thing. And I came back at like 11:45 at night. 12, I think I rang you first. I was a bit out of it.
You called me and you were like, Chris, I have some news. Hayden Christensen is coming back in Star Wars. And I was like, George, if you had too much, just go to sleep, George. It's fine. It's fine. You're talking nonsense. Then in the morning, you see all the announcements. You're like, oh, damn, we have things to talk about. But yeah, no, you were first line. So you pitched this thing to me. And I mean, you basically told me what it is. It's this Investor Day. It sounds immediately from the title, it sounds very corporate. It seems like a lot of, I can imagine like a long table, everyone in suits. You've got someone at the head of the table. You've got clipboards. You've got pitch meetings, statistics, numbers, analytics. And I thought, this doesn't sound like something that's going to be listener friendly. This seems like something like almost tapping phones and listening to like a secret corporate conversation.
And that's the thing. Normally they are. I think I listened in their one at March. And it was like Mandalorian's finished filming before the lockdown. And it was like one news tidbit from this. Here, let's crunch the numbers. Here's our money from theme parks. Here's this and that. And it's strange to let people listen in. But I underestimated them this time because this ended up being a convention. And this is what's really sad. So I kind of thought of this earlier. I put it in the schedule. It kind of clicked on me that Star Wars Celebration was meant to go ahead in August. D23 was meant to go ahead in August. San Diego was meant to go ahead in July. Going back to March, exactly, Carl, thanks for bringing that up. It was Celebration D23 run into one. Back in March, there was going to be the Disney Plus European launch, which I had a ticket for. They were going to formally announce a couple of projects there as well. So all of their destinations to announce stuff was gone. And that's why I think gargantuan is the word I'm going to use now. Because this is every single thing possible rolled into one. We aren't including the National Geographic documentaries, guys, because we don't cover them on the channel. God help us, there'd be another 20 bullet points if there was. So we've essentially split this up. We'll go through the plan for you guys at home. We're going to talk very quickly about two small things, sort of very briefly, numbers and TV and a new Disney Plus thing. Then we're going to go studio by studio. We're going to do Lucasfilm. Then we're going to do live action Disney/Disney Studios. Then we're going to do the Disney animated classics, Pixar, and finishing off with Marvel. So we'll give you the best at the beginning and the end. And in the middle, you'll get to hear probably there's going to be some really interesting discussions. If you haven't already figured them out, you're going to find them out very soon. But let's begin. Here's that Star Trek can start. It's like, shall we begin? So the precursor is that they announced before it all really happened. There's going to be 10 Marvel shows, 10 Star Wars shows, and 50 live action /Pixar/Disney animated shows on Disney Plus over the next few years. A few years puts it lightly. There are rumors that this whole slate is for stuff up to release to the end of 2023, which scares me. Because this is enough to do a studio 10 years. I
was going to say, well, it scared me. I mean, this was apocalyptic pretty much for every other streaming service, every other production company, everything. I thought there were laws in place to stop monopolies from happening, but apparently not for Disney. Maybe they pay those laws off. I don't know. This is terrifying. We're used to like the Marvel model for like X amount of years, but to see that for everything, it's a little bit terrifying. I think the only piece of content we're ever going to be watching is Disney. We will all have our little Mickey Mouse ears at home, a slave to the mouse, a slave to the Disney castle. But I mean, it's Disney Plus is paying for itself right now. If anyone's a subscriber, like you're going to be getting a lot of stuff. And I guess we can start off with one of the big things, which is probably going to open up the age range. Yeah. It's very much a family streaming service anyway, but now they're going to appeal to a different demographic, starting with Star and Star Plus. Obviously, with the acquisition of 20th Century Fox, we expected that this would be integrated at some point, but they are integrating another section onto Disney Plus internationally, where you are going to have those that Fox back catalog and the R-rated films as well. I believe in America, though, they're not getting that. That is still going to be done through the sort of sister streaming service that they have with Hulu. But I mean, if Disney Plus didn't already have a lot of stuff on there in terms of back catalog, well, you're going to have even more now.
Yeah, and I think we kind of expected this. This had been rumored for a while. The Star Plus is for the R-rated stuff because Disney don't make R-rated films. Obviously, when they took over 20th Century Fox, I think, bar the situation, that was probably one of the bigger things. Like, this is a company that doesn't make R-rated content, and this is one of the only companies left that still do. And to be fair to them, the last 2 years, their productions, they're still using the 20th Century Fox brand on some films, which I quite like. I know it's now 20th Century Studios, they call it. They just dropped the Fox from all of it, which I understand. But this is what they needed because that back catalogue is rich. There's so much that they can play with. A couple of things announced tonight that do involve 20th Century Fox, but we all kind of knew that this would happen. And I've seen people moaning, saying that in America, left of Hulu, they do bundles, so it won't really make a difference. Disney own Hulu. Hulu's never really been a thing internationally. It's always been America. So we're going to get it built in. They'll get it eventually, probably, because there's rumors that Hulu and Disney Plus will merge, which is the talk of America, because they've got sports rights on there. Sports stuff isn't over here. So it's very, political's putting it lightly, it's very licensey, isn't it? That's probably the best term. So, I own a lot of the Fox things I like, so I'm not going to say it doesn't affect me, but in terms of a scope, that's a really nice thing to do. I wish it'd been called 20th Century Fox, but for a streaming service, they've announced they're going to up it by $1 a month, which is pennies, compared to when Netflix tend to hike it a lot each year. It's currently, £6 a month here in England. They haven't announced the international tariffs, but an extra £1 a month for everything we're going to talk about tonight. Plus Fox, that's a bargain. I paid £12 for Netflix. And Netflix is great. I don't think it's worth that, but it's still worth having. That's the key, I guess, right? Disney Plus, I'm fine with. Amazon Prime, I think, is dreadful, but I get it for my deliveries, so that's fine as a free service to come on the side. But Fox is a really big thing for me, for them to manage properly. And they've already used. I think the 3 examples they had was Alien, Die Hard, and Deadpool 2 for this Star Plus thing. So at least they're acknowledging the Fox stuff before they inevitably do make Deadpool 3, which is in early development. And that's the thing with everything we're going to go through tonight. It makes sense that a lot of these are going to be done by 2023 because there are some projects we know are in development which they didn't touch upon. Tron, Deadpool, we'll get to a potential trilogy for Lucasfilm, but there's a lot of projects we know are in development they didn't speak about, so that's also a pretty crazy thing because considering everything they did tell us about.
I think I'm okay with it. I know that I always go back to the Splash example, right? Tom Hanks, Daryl Hannah, revered for that one scene that got edited with some awful CGI, like the censorship and everything. I really hope they don't censor this, because this is going to be that platform for specifically those more adult films. Just leave them as they are, and hopefully they get Splash on there as well. Splash is a PG. You don't need to edit it, but I don't want Disney or any VFX companies tinkering with these films. Leave them as they are if you've got them. But speaking of Alien, actually, that's a good segue. So the next thing, there is an Alien TV series being planned, apparently. It's going to be set on Earth in the distant future. If this has kind of stomped out any future plans for Ridley Scott to come back to the Alien franchise, which I can't believe I'm saying because the guy started it all in the first place, then all the better for it, because the less said about Prometheus and certainly Alien Covenant, the better. I do remember hearing rumors that he was working on another Alien film. But I mean, this seems like it's going to be stamping that out now, which is all good in my opinion. But it's going to be very interesting to see, this company take on an Alien franchise. It seems very, very... I was going to say it sounds very alien for Disney, but I mean, it is. It's very weird. It's different times. And I need to get used to it, I think.
And they're releasing it under FX, which I think were part of Fox. So they own this new TV network too now, who do What We Do in the Shadows, which is technically a Disney comedy, which has just hit me. But also the weirdest announcement of the day, maybe this is the announcement for worst name in the history of spin-off series. Alas, Fear the Walking Dead, we found on worse. American Horror Stories. It's a spin-off of American Horror Story.
Just make it plural. That's how it always works, isn't it? In the sequel spin-off world.
I mean, we love Too Fast, Too Furious, Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, Fast and Furious, The Fast and the Furious, Fast and Furious 5, Fast 6. I'm down for adjustments of titles, but story and stories as a spin-off, that's but I've never seen them. I know that's got a big following, but that's the non-Disney projects we're going to talk about.
I guess just before we get to the next big one, really quickly from Carl, because of world events and with cinemas and parks closing, Disney has lost billions, making investors nervous. This was their way of coming out swinging against HBO Max and gain confidence. And I think you said as well, the stocks for Disney were crashing, were plummeting, and this has just sent them all the way back through the roof again.
Yeah, and this is the thing. It's obviously we are in an unknown year, and obviously we're hoping for a lot more next year. We know the vaccine started rolling out near us. The UK's had it first, so there's a bit of normality we're hoping for, certainly by spring. But in terms of theme parks, big clusters of groups, I think you're going to get that in the latter half of next year. But when they've got like the entire Disneyland staff furloughed at all their theme parks across the world, it's a pretty terrifying image. And even on like not a personal standpoint, but these are people's jobs as well, and it must be really intimidating for that company. Even though Disney are these elitists and they do have that money, the way those stocks have fallen, I've not seen a decline in a company this big, this never hit administration. We'll never say Disney would get there. They are safe, and I think this is just it's exactly as Carl's, but this is just going to reinforce. He says swing. It's more like they've got an axe and they've just took the limbs off the other services. Like if an investor wasn't invested, they will be now. They've made all their money back and more if they wanted to sell up. So there is that. However, let's get through. So we're going to hit Studio One. We go for the big one, which is our beloved Lucasfilm. Again, I missed this, so it was incredible to see so much stuff announced that we didn't know and get caught up on. We're going to go through this the way they did it. Obviously, there's some things which we're going to gloss over, which will be like 10, 20 seconds, guys. This will be a case for a lot of it. We don't have the time. There'll be some things which will no doubt be the talking point. But the first thing announced was 2 series set within the Mandalorian timeline, which they had a Mandalorian like a flashback where they showed the first, like a roundup of the previous 2 seasons up to yesterday. If you haven't seen our Mandalorian video, do check that out. However, we have a new series called Rangers of the New Republic, which is set within the Mandalorian timeline. Now, we now know, spoiler alert, Gina Carano is a Ranger of the New Republic.
Is she a Ranger or is she a Sheriff?
Oh, sorry, she's a Marshal. Sorry.
Marshal. There we go. We're both wrong.
Sorry, I'm wrong. This series is really... So this was the first thing. This came out of nowhere, and I actually have a photo, but they've got a logo. It's not Space Rangers of the New Republic. We'll get to a Space Ranger later on. But... yeah, that's one thing to come up. Okay, no one saw that coming. Again, I know we've got differing opinions on the sequel trilogy, but I think me and you both said we want that gap filled between 6 and 7. There's certainly, I think right now, more interesting things on paper for the first 10 years of the 30-year gap, maybe more so than the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And I don't know what they didn't say, like showrunners or anything. This is just like, this is a series in development. We've had a couple of New Republic hints in The Mandalorian. I've got a really cool pilot who I just forget the name of. He's popped up a couple of times, the Asian American one. I'm not saying I want a series set around him, but now I've realized that Cara Dune is a Marshal of the New Republic, not a Ranger. I now have full belief and confidence that this isn't a Gina Carano spin-off show. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But yeah, this is curious. This is weird. I don't know how we're going to talk these, because these are big talking points.
Yeah, so with shows like this where they just show a logo and go, this is happening at some point, I have no opinion on it. Like, show me footage, tell me who you've got cast, tell me what it's going to be about specifically, and it might pique my curiosity. But so many of these, which will actually make it a lot easier for us because we can brush over them, it's just this nebulous date in a few years' time, this thing is going to be happening. So I don't really have much opinion on Rangers of the New Republic. It's nice that they're filling out sort of that Mandalorian timeline. I think actually you mentioned it in our Mandalorian review last night, saying that you think Mandalorian is going to be sort of the anchor that all of these shows bridge off from. I think you're still going to be able to understand Mandalorian, but I think if you watch any of these other shows with prior knowledge of Mandalorian, it might put things more in context. But yeah, it's just one of the many Star Wars shows that have been announced in terms of that. But the next one, this is probably a bigger talking point. So Ahsoka, I think it was pretty much a foregone conclusion after inclusion in Mandalorian that they want to wring as much from this character as they possibly can. We have seen her in Clone Wars. We've seen her in Rebels. She's a fan favorite. Clone Wars coming back at the beginning of this year. Introduction into the Mandalorian. I think once you've got a live action Ahsoka cast with Rosario Dawson, they'd be idiots not to exploit that, I think. And I think they're just going to, well, she's getting her own series. There were rumors as to whether it was going to be an animated series to continue that storyline with the character. But I think they're probably going to take the ideas from that, or just take the scripts that they had and merge it with this series.
This is exactly my thoughts. When they announced it, that's not surprising in the least. A year ago, that would have been surprising. But now we've had her in live action. She's had that positive reaction from the fans. It is that, I think we said it on the Mandalorian review as well. It could not was that episode a backdoor pilot for our own series, but why make an animated series when you can make a live action series probably in a short amount of time? I mean, when they were making like Rebels, I think they were rendered like 2 years in advance. The voice acting was done a year before they were ever shown, and that's like a 2-year window. Whereas when it's live action, it's like filming Mandalorian was like November last year and it aired this year. So the turnaround is probably actually quicker on live action. Granted, it's slightly more expensive, but if you set this character up, I mean, we'll get into the live action remakes there. I've always kind of said to you, nothing against animation. I like animation as a concept, but I've always preferred live action. It's being that, Clone Wars couldn't have been live action 11 years ago. George Lucas wanted to do live action TV series, but it was unaffordable. By creating the volume, they've now made this stuff affordable. Granted, it's still incredibly expensive, but they can do things. I mean, if the Clone Wars budgets were like $7 million an episode in 2008, and The Mandalorian was like $15 million an episode in season 1, why not just pay the upgrade and get the live action people in? I'm excited for this only because I think it's going to be wrapping up a character arc. You've had her in Clone Wars, Rebels, Mando, finish with your own series set during The Mandalorian. Not to get into Mandalorian speculation, I think the beauty of this is that it takes Thrawn out of the equation for being in the season finale. She's got her own path set during these events. I think, not to get again speculation train, I would bet everything on Dave Filoni being the showrunner, maybe even director of the whole series. That's very much his character, his creation with Lucas. So this is one I'm interested in more so because it's going to wrap up that character arc. But I think, again, it's this huge announcement that's just in the midst of many of us.
Mm-hmm. And like most of these as well, even with Ahsoka, it's different than Rangers of the New Republic because Ahsoka's a character that I know and has been fleshed out greatly already. But even now, it's just this show could be good. It could be terrible. I'm going to have to reserve judgment until we get more footage from it. And this is exactly the same as the next show that we're going to talk about as well. So Andor, the spin-off series on Cassian Andor, it's been long rumored. I think it was actually probably one of the first series along with Obi-Wan Kenobi that was announced. We got a logo. I will say that across the board, Disney know how to make logos. You got to give those guys a rise because they did a tremendous job across the board with these things. It's confirmed to stream in 2022, and I can't even call it a trailer. And we got this a few times on this announcement as well, a sizzle reel. the show will kind of vaguely be about this or look like this, and it's just taking footage from previous existing things that we've seen. Doesn't count as a trailer to me. So again, another example where we didn't technically see footage. I've expressed my opinions on this. I thought, was it Diego
Luna?
Luna, that was his name. Yeah, good actor. I liked him in Rogue One. I didn't think much to his character, but obviously this might flesh it out for when you go back to watch Rogue One and you understand more about it. It's just not a character that's really interesting in the grand scheme of things, really, is it? It's all the things that Disney could have done with this property. And, you know, we have got some good stuff coming up in a minute, especially the next one we're going to talk about, where there is like fertile ground to mine and to establish and go into more. We could have got Old Republic. We could have got anything. And they go with a Cassian Andor series. I guarantee, even after watching Rogue One, if you're like casual fan, you'd probably even get to the end of that film and someone will say Cassian Andor, and people probably still won't know who you're talking about at the end of that film. So it might be fine. Again, going to reserve judgment if they can make it sort of like Mandalorian. If we can get more of that street level kind of stuff that we saw at the beginning of Rogue One, that could be really interesting. But it's just not a character I particularly care about. And to be honest, I think you got everything you needed from his character in that film. You saw he was, yeah, exactly. And then he's killed in an explosion on Scarif. And why is this a character that we need to go back to? If you're going to do a Rogue One character, I would have preferred a Jyn Erso one, because there is, again, that's so much ground from her being rescued by Saw Gerrera as a kid at the beginning to where we see her at the beginning of the film. Go into more of that stuff to establish that character. But the logo looks nice, I guess. I guess that's the thing.
Yeah. It's because it's only been filming for about 4 weeks as well, so it's kind of like they wanted to show, but there's nothing to show. And you know, you're right, Cassian. It's kind of made me a bit more relieved knowing how many of the series they've got planned, because maybe as a gist for Disney Plus, when they were announcing these Disney Plus series, not Star Wars, the whole of Disney Plus, to me this was like, this is a blockbuster thing that's going to be on the small screen, and it was that Cassian question mark thing. And you know me, we both love Rogue One, and he is likable in it, but when you watch Rogue One, he's not the takeaway from it. And the thing is, building up to Rogue One, he was by far the most charismatic, everything, all of them on any press duty. He was insane. I've not watched Narcos, which I think he's in, or I'm getting him mixed up with Pedro Pascal. Someone's in Narcos that's in Star Wars. And I'm happy to see it. I think we'll get to this with one of the other series shortly. A lot of these series, we kind of spoke last night about it. I don't know if it was off air or on air, but you know, you get these comic books where it's like they're doing an 8 comic special and we'll never do it again. It's like a one-shot series, they call it. A lot of these shows feel like that, and I have actually got a lot of time for that, because certainly for Star Wars more than Marvel, it feels like I can watch that and I'm not going to have to watch X, Y, and Z before it to make sense, but I don't have to watch X, Y, and Z after it to make sense. It feels very much like the probably the most expensive term used ever for expanded universe is maybe these Disney Plus shows, because I think filling in, like, to me, Mandalorian, as we said earlier yesterday, is also going to be that's going to end up being as big as the episode films by the time that's finished. Where it is now, Baby Yoda included, all of it, pop culture phenomenon, kickstarting Disney Plus. Mandalorian is going to be as big as the episodic films, if not it's already bigger than some of them, and it's about branching off from that. To be the face of Lucasfilm's TV, and it's a Mandalorian helmet, is incredible. So I'm curious for Andor. I was happy they brought a lot of Rogue One people in. I think Tony Gura was meant to direct, but because of Corona, he's now just producing, and they've hired directors in England to film it over here as well. So the 2022 thing got me, because it kind of made me sad, like, is that the next bit of Star Wars content, 2022? Like, it's filming now. The others aren't in filming now. Does this mean that everything to come is 2022 onwards? Because Mando season 3 is not started filming yet, and that's now our traditional November release window. So unless they can do an incredible post-production, which we know is slightly shorter due to them having the volume to create the visual effects first, after next week, Cassian might be our next bit of Star Wars content, and that's a terrifying thought. It's not terrifying. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's not really terrifying. It's the knowing how, like, Marvel will get to later. It's like once a week for 6 months so far, confirmed, asterisk, everything else is coming. This is going to be like, that's weird. You know, we used to love our December release dates for Star Wars, and so they didn't get the December date, and that December, it was like, now would have been the right time for something Star Wars to come out. And I'm liking these year gaps, but I hope you can get Mandalorian season 3. I know that's a side point. It's not related to this, but
No, I was going to
Yeah,
say,
it
'cause
will be
you
nice
get
to.
attached to those characters, don't you? You want to see them each year. You kind of expect it after, and especially because they've done 1 and 2 sort of back to back, you want 3 as well. But I don't know, with all this stuff even more that we've got to read off now, that year gap might be that inhale, that, and then the year after, blur. Here you go. Here's like 10 different Star Wars shows. But the next one. This is like, I think, head and shoulders above the rest, really, especially with one that you could have just left it at the title anyway. But the fact of the announcement that we got makes me very, very excited. So, Obi-Wan Kenobi, we know that he's getting a TV show. It's going to be set, I believe they said 10 years after Revenge of the Sith, if I'm remembering rightly.
Yeah.
So it's going to be nestled very nicely in between Revenge of the Sith and New Hope. Again, as I mentioned, fertile ground. Getting Ewan McGregor back is huge. And especially exciting to see what new material he's going to be working with in this, away from the prequel era stuff. But speaking of prequel era stuff, we have the return of one Hayden Christensen in the role as Darth Vader. And they've specifically said Darth Vader. I mean, he would be at this point anyway. But I do share Carl's confusion. So Carl in the comments earlier said, Hayden coming was my news of the night. I'm guessing they won't hide him behind the Darth Vader suit and will be used for flashbacks. Now, having specifically said that he's going to be returning as Darth Vader, I did kind of say to you that, number one, it's great that Hayden's returning to Star Wars, because I think, like, the fans were very cruel when the prequels came out. They've kind of found a new acceptance now, and I think a lot of fans, when he came out at Star Wars Celebration, whenever the last one was, the fan response was great when he came out on stage. I think even he was a bit taken aback and emotional at that. But if he's behind a suit, you're not going to see him. And Darth Vader doesn't have the voice of Hayden Christensen. He has James Earl Jones, or like another voice impersonator of Darth Vader. So that's weird. I have to assume it's going to be flashbacks. We've speculated, hopefully, with some digital de-aging, maybe could they do flashbacks to Clone Wars era? And we get the Clone Wars animation realized finally in live action. That could be insane. Going back and establishing that friendship. Flashbacks from Obi-Wan Kenobi. You basically want it to be Obi-Wan Kenobi PTSD, the series. And I am totally okay with that. Just Obi-Wan being miserable in a cave, thinking back to better times that have come before. And that could be a great place for Hayden Christensen to come in. And if we've got Vader as the main antagonist in it as well, then it definitely sounds like a series that I want to watch.
This blew me away. This took me down a rabbit hole. I mean, we've badgered on about the prequels feature for so many years because we love them. I tweeted 9-year-old me, we love Kenobi. I don't know if it's the same view at the age of 9. It wasn't Kenobi you loved, it was Anakin.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan matured like a fine wine. You hit an age where suddenly, hold on, do I like Obi-Wan more than Anakin? And you hit that age and he's like a fine wine that grows with you. But Anakin was that. Episode 3, I was 9 years old. I went to the hairdresser, as asked for long hair. I had the same haircut I've always had. It was short. I had action figures, I had Mustafar, I had Legos, I had everything. Anakin Skywalker was the one. He is the chosen one. Nothing else is said. He should have been in at some point. Doesn't matter which one. He should have been in the sequel series at some point. Mm-hmm. And I will once again say I didn't moan too much back then because I was a child. I've never been as critical of the special editions as some, and I respect everyone's opinions because there are some things terribly wrong with them. But I've never had beef with Hayden. It's just a shame he didn't get the follow-up to it, which would have made it make more. You know how Tamura Morrison's now in The Mandalorian?
Yeah.
So you can look back at Empire Strikes Back and say, you know what? I don't mind that as much now because Tamura Morrison's ended up playing him in live action. I think there would have been maybe an online discourse similar of if Hayden had come back as a Force ghost, that would have solidified what George Lucas did in 2004. Different conversation. But I think this is the same. I think we're going to get Obi-Wan PTSD. I think Anakin's going to be haunting him. I think this is going to be Obi-Wan about his phase. I think it will be flashbacks. I think it will be visions and not visions in his head, but you get them like dramas where someone, like in Batman Begins. Speaking of Liam Neeson, I'll get to him actually in a second. When Bruce is in the cave, not in the cave, he's in the pit, and Liam Neeson's there, and he's not actually there. I think we're going to get things like that with Hayden because you are both absolutely right. He isn't James Earl Jones, and physically, I know he was in the suit in Revenge of the Sith. Then again, for Rogue One, they'd hired. I forgot the name. There's 2 of them that both played him: Spencer Wilding and something else. Now, 2015. I'm glad you brought up the Hayden Christensen moment. Dave said this to me yesterday on chat. He said the redemption of Hayden is almost as big as the redemption of Darth Vader, and that's probably the best term I've ever heard for it. I think in 2015, if the news report pre-Episode 7 was Hayden Christensen's going to be in Rogue One, people would have kicked off. For whatever reason, we won't go into prequel discourse. We know it's not our age generation between us.
Mm-hmm.
But in 2017, after Celebration, I think a lot of people, I'm not saying individuals, but there'd have been some people that were very critical back then who maybe sat back and thought, you know what, he was a kid and I was harsh on him.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly older people, I know that Jake Lloyd would have had that with what he's been through. And Ewan McGregor said he used to get abuse in the street, and now the new generation does nothing but praise him in the streets. It's all that kind of stuff. So the time is right. And if this is going to be our farewell, not to the prequel era, I hope, but if this is going to be our farewell to Ewan McGregor as Kenobi, bring Hayden. Apparently, he said in an interview that the most exciting thing he is that Hayden's going to be in it with him. I think we're going to get them in flashbacks, and I think we're going to get some form of not ghost stalkering, but that vision-esque thing. But the real question remains, which we'll find out, is Darth Vader going to physically appear in the series as Darth Vader?
I think he will.
I think he will.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Right now, if someone says it to me, I don't want it, and that's me being truthfully honest. But if they're able to do it in a way, it's going to be a hard sell. It's going to be a very hard sell. Someone quoted on Twitter. Darth Vader says to him in episode 4, "When I left you, I was but the learner." Blah blah blah. They pointed out when I left you, and they said, well, Obi-Wan's the one that left him at the bottom of the mountain. So could there have been an appearance? Now, I think we all know he meant it mentally, that he left and now he's joining the dark side. But if they really want to exploit and avoid a loophole, as they so did with the Death Star plans on Rogue One, maybe there would be a moment. I don't know. I think we're going to get Darth Vader. It's not something right now I want, but if it's delivered, that does the character's justice, that doesn't feel forced. Because there's a great scene somewhere, if Ben Kenobi realizes that that's Anakin Skywalker inside that thing, that is going to be a phenomenal moment if it's pulled off right.
Oh, yeah, because he wouldn't even realize, would he, at that point? Yeah, that's a great point.
And that's the thing. So there's a lot of potential in this series, and this is the thing. And I think because this series is so attached to everyone, it's so there's probably going to be, in all honesty, maybe more pressure on this than on, like, not more pressure in the sequel trilogy, because that's absurd, but there's going to be more pressure on this online series than probably any of the other Disney Plus live action Star Wars series. Deborah Chow did 2 episodes of The Mandalorian. She was phenomenal. She did episodes 3 and 7. She had some of the best action in it. Impressed Lucasfilm, they gave her the entire series herself. That's one consistent person directing throughout. I know they've had a couple of different writers. Ewan's got an executive producer credit, so he's obviously had some say in it. I just want them to do not just Obi-Wan justice, I want them to do our generation justice. Because we're the ones that hit to sit there and say we love the prequels when people bashed us for it. Mm-hmm. And it's our turn. So I'm very, very... I'm excited. But,
I know there's been some rumors about the script writing process, and there's been some discrepancies about that. So I really hope they manage to get that locked down, because I think more than anything, this is the one where you need to nail that script, and you need to get like a good dramatic piece between these two characters. People always say that the story of the prequels, especially Revenge of the Sith, is almost like a Shakespearean tragedy with how it plays out. And I think you need to keep that essence of what the story is. Carl brings a great point as well. I know that we've got to move on, so this will be like the last thing I'll say on it, but there are some inconsistencies which kind of fall to George Lucas. It's almost like he didn't watch his original films and then, made the prequels, and there's a lot of discrepancies there. But this one could be filled in. It will make sense with the line in Return of the Jedi when Luke is trying to turn Vader away from the dark side because he can feel the good in him, the conflict. Vader says, Obi-Wan once thought as you do. As the films play out at the moment, Obi-Wan straight up gave up on him, like completely and utterly. So if they can address that, then that's great. I just want to see more Ewan McGregor and now Hayden as well. The Dream Team's back together, so we'll see how that plays out. Now, back to a slightly bit of underwhelming news, potentially, although I think we're both going to be in agreement in this, in that the time that this next one's set is exciting, but maybe not the main focal characters. Yeah. So we have the Bad Batch. This was another sizzle reel that was released. Now, George, you probably know more about the Bad Batch than I do. I am slogging my way through Clone Wars at the moment, and I don't believe that I got to the Bad Batch episodes. I know that Bad Batch were cancelled episodes, weren't they? And then they were brought into the final season with some of that. I think they remastered the old animation. But as far as I know, all I know about them is that they're basically defective clones. They're either super aged or kind of super strong, or there's messed up genetic codes, really, and they all have different personalities. One might be a bit slow, one might be fast. It's just like a ragtag group of defective clones, essentially. I don't really like that. I don't know what the general fan consensus is on the Bad Batch, but this is going to be set straight after the announcement of Order 66 with the Emperor's rise to power. That's the bit that's got me. Anything that's going to be mining more content from that Clone Wars, from that whole conflict towards the end of the film. Revenge of the Sith, as it was, it felt like a very packed film. It feels like maybe Lucas should have distributed some of that across a trilogy a bit more. So anything where we can... Clone Wars did this great as well, like the final few episodes of Season 7, where it makes you completely reanalyze episode 3. There's all this extra stuff, all this extra conflict going on in different planets, and it all comes together as a cohesive whole. If this helps to do that, then great. But just from what I've heard of the Bad Batch as characters, feels a little bit out of place to me.
Yeah, there's obviously, we know Clone Wars. I think, did they say they originally wanted 10 seasons? Obviously, Disney bought them. Cartoon Network licensing issues, the show had to be cancelled. Time had to pass. They had to revert the rights back. And when they announced the final season of Clone Wars, 12 episodes, we used to 22. We know there was 3 seasons worth. Bad Batch were released pre-rendered in the past. I always arrogantly held out saying I'm not going to watch pre-rendered animation. It is impossible to watch. It was a really struggle when I saw clips. People did. That's fine. That's cool. But yeah, these were like the Suicide Squad. These are like the concept of like these deficient clones, so they make their own squad. That's a cool premise. And I was really down for it. And these guys are hyped up a lot. So the people that had gone out and watched the pre-rendered footage were very, very loving of these characters. So that I'd rampant expectation and said the first episodes of the final season is going to be the Bad Batch arc. My word. I wasn't a fan. I loved the concepts of them, but it wasn't interesting. The best thing about them was how far the Clone Wars animation had grown in 8 years with modern technology, and it was stunning from a production standpoint. But I really struggled with the 4. They weren't interesting. The strong one was the dumb one. It was every stereotype. You've got the sharpshooter who's edgy. You've got the tech guy, and you've got this. And when they announced the Bad Batch series, I was like, okay, maybe it was a backdoor pilot last year. And I like the fact we're getting this content. And I avoided watching the sizzle reel until last night. And I watched it, and there was one line about 30 seconds in, and suddenly I was not sold on I was sold on, as you said, the environment. We get a hologram speech of the Emperor. I'm reorganizing into the first. I'm not going to even try and interpret the first Galactic Empire speech, and he's on a hologram, and it's the shot of episode 2 with the clone army, and these guys. The friends like, oh my words, are these guys going to be like the headstorm? Could they, in theory, be like, they're this ragtag group of clones, but they're now in the Empire. Are they going to be like hunting Jedis? Are they going to be doing something? Like, I suddenly had all these ideas of a sizzle reel. I'm not going to spoil it, but it looks like they turn on the clones in it, or do the clones turn on them? So I'm excited for the timing more so than the projects. I think, we get a look at a young Fennec, who obviously we've seen in Mandalorian now, who's had decent amounts to do this series compared to last series. And I'm assuming Ming-Na Wen's probably voicing her as well. So that's cool. Again, it's not criticism of Disney. This is, again, when they bought the property in 2012, the prequels weren't not marketable. They weren't viable they had to appeal to get the old fans back. And everything was filled in. I say between 3 and 4. The last 5 years between 3 and 4, everything was peppered in at that. Let's get everything done around the originals. We're not going to touch the prequels or the sequels yet. We'll wait till 9's out, fill in the gaps, which they're doing. But the prequels they avoided, and bringing Clone Wars back is a really good thing. And there's so much potential in these early years of the Empire. I don't know how far this is going, but Tarkin was in the sizzle reel. And I was like, oh, Tarkin was great. He'll be high up because we saw him on the little landing platform with Vader at the end of episode 3. So I'm not sold on it yet, but the timings set me astray. I'm glad this isn't set during the Clone Wars, but there are a lot of Bad Batch fans, but it's going to be a really tricky one. And this will be out next year on Disney Plus. As I said, animation it's a long turnover, so these would have been made a long time ago. But yeah, when you get them,
go on, sorry.
I'll say when you get to these episodes, I think I know what you're going to think of them. You'll be in the same vein as me.
So season 7 was weird for me. I caught like the last few because that was really where the core.
That's what you need to watch.
Plot is. Exactly, yeah. So I just went straight to the end. I haven't gone back and watched them all yet. I will do though when I get to it.
Siege of Mandalore is a film, and I'll maintain that it was a animated classic film.
Yeah,
I bet if Lucas was in charge, that would have been at a cinema. But yeah, this the other arcs were. Yeah, moving on. We're getting a really quick one. We're going to gloss over. So they announced a series called Visions. This is going to be a new animated series set across the Star Wars timeline, and essentially it's going to be short episodes or segments, and it's going to be done via anime artists. So I don't know if you saw that TIE Fighter.
I was just going to bring that up. Yeah, it's just on there. For anyone who hasn't checked this out, please do. It's like one of the best animated segments, especially Star Wars animated segments. It's on a channel by Ota King 77077. Maybe he needs to work on that name. 11 million views. It's about 7.5 minutes. It's fantastic. Go and check it out. There's also, granted, probably not as anime. That's definitely stylized in that anime particular style. But I love the Star Wars Galaxy of Adventure segments that you can find. I don't know what they were attached to, if they were a separate thing. They're about a minute to a minute and a half. Some are even shorter than that. But that you just have that free reign with animation. You can make the lightsaber fights look larger than life, crazy, really, really animated movements to them and exaggerated poses and fighting styles. We even kind of got that with the Cartoon Network series, the original, The Clone Wars, I think it was called, wasn't it? Or just Clone Wars, either one.
Volume 1 and 2.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm really excited about this, especially because it's just going to be a short, self-contained, different artist, different artistic style that perhaps we haven't seen all that much in Star Wars. So I'm really curious about this one. It seems like it's going to be very much removed from everything, but just as a fan of animation, I don't watch as much anime as perhaps I should. But one thing I've always said about anime is that the animation and the artistry is second to none in it. So I'm really looking forward to this one, actually.
It feels different. I'm glad you brought Galaxy Adventures because I wouldn't have either completely forgot. They're on the Star Wars Kids YouTube channel, and I didn't subscribe to get notifications, but when they would crop up on Twitter, I just couldn't look away. And normally I'm quite specific with Star Wars. I could look away. Like, I don't like seeing animated things, not in the snobby way, but I don't want to see this attempt at doing this. But Galaxy of Adventures was phenomenal. And if it's anything like that, and it's maybe like, we don't know if it's 20 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes here and there, I'm kind of intrigued. It's like this what if for Marvel. It seems like here's an animated series that's going to be on the platform that's about that universe, and you can probably come in and out. It's not compulsory viewing. It's just there as an additional thing. So that's pretty cool. I'm intrigued for that. But I did think a TIE Fighter. I think hopefully if it is similar to that, maybe they reached out to that guy and
I was going to say, get him in. Absolutely. Yeah.
But that's everyone's seen that, I think. But moving on from Visions, because there's a lot to plow through. This is what I'm really excited for.
Are we really halfway through the Lucasfilm announcements? Guys, let us know how you're doing at home. Like, as we said, like, we're at 45 minutes. We're halfway. Oh, we can do this.
This is news for the year. We've mostly had no news to talk about, and now we've got it all on one night. Let's talk about Lando, a Disney Plus TV series. This has been rumored for a while, to be fair. The moment they cast Donald Glover, I mean, this isn't the first time tonight we'll talk about fan casting. It's not fan casting. It's just glaringly obvious castings, probably a term sometimes used. You know, I know we've got different thoughts on Solo. I was very flat on my first viewing. I've really enjoyed it. Once time had passed, I think it was too close to Last Jedi. It's the only Star Wars film I've only seen once at the cinema of the Disney era. Everything else was minimum 4 or 5. And I kind of picked up and it grew on me after each viewing. I had a really fun time Solo now. And we've kind of always said between us, we've spoke to other people know, Solo should have been a Disney Plus series. I think had Disney Plus had been around 3 years ago, Solo would be on Disney Plus. It suited it. It was part of the George Lucas TV series. He had ideas for this young Solo to appear in them, but Donald Glover was the standout of that by a country mile. He was essentially flawless as Lando Calrissian. You had the Calrissian Chronicles. You had Billy D. Williams and him wearing matching suits at the Solo premiere. In fact, Billy D wasn't even in Solo, and he still went identical suits to Donald Glover / Childish Gambino. This is something I've wanted for a long time. They haven't named it yet, unless it's just Lando. The Calrissian Chronicles should be the name, because that's what they call it in Solo. His little video diary. What I would love, I don't know if this would happen, if it's a plan, but I think they've called it an event series, which I think just means it's a standalone, probably one season and done. because event series is a very unique term compared to everything else they've announced. But I think we're going to get Donald Glover Lando in a short series about what he did, and I really hope it's being narrated by Billy D and it's Lando looking back at his life, or something to get the two of them. That's like the romantic in me that wants this really nice interconnectivity between the two Landos. But I'm excited for that. I didn't think I would be, but I love Donald Glover. Childish Gambino is like one of the modern music people I listen to. He's phenomenal in a lot of stuff he's done. So I'm sold on that before you even get to the plot and anything else.
Well, Dave, the Life of Brian says that they didn't mention Glover in the announcement, but I think the guy's been in Solo already. He's even in. I keep forgetting he was in Spider-Man: Homecoming, wasn't he? Very briefly, and Lion King, definitely. So he's in the Disney family. So it makes sense they'll probably reach out to him. The guy's done TV before. Granted, that was before he really, really blew up, but he has done TV with Community. I wasn't keen on Solo. But I did think that if I was going to give a positive, I think that, Glover was probably the best thing in that. I thought he captured the essence of Billy D very well. Again, is this a show that needs to be told? Now, what I think is that maybe they'll take some of those treatments or ideas because it was very clear at the end of Solo, they were gearing up for like a trilogy of Solo films or something, whether they're going to take elements of that and integrate it into this, and they're going to sort of finish out what they had planned. Maybe they'd get Darth Maul involved in it again, which we saw at the end of Solo. I think that needs to be tied up just for the grander scheme of everything. But it's as you say, in hindsight now, Solo, if they were going to make it, should have been a TV series.
Yeah, and I think Maul would be a bit extreme to drop on Lando. But I think I would be shocked if in this series there isn't an Alden Ehrenreich and Chewbacca moment. If they're not, even if it's guest episode and then they get their own series down the line or something, I think you're right. There's things that were set up. They can't have the friendship / beef they did in episode 5 from a mission from like 10 years previously, and that was it. So I'd love to get them back. Have this like not even farewell. I think this would be a saying bye to the character of Lando properly. He didn't get a lot to do in episode 9. He was in one of my favorite scenes, which was the speech with Poe, which I believe that Oscar Isaac actually requested for them to write, which was again
like an actual character moment in a film. That's nice.
And that's the thing, and that was great for him being in that. But yeah, this could be neat. It could be neat. Again, it's risky because is this a comic book series being adapted into a TV series? And is in that extremity of this could be a 50-page side piece navigating in live action. So I'm curious, and we've got a showrunner attached to it. So he's called Justin, I can't remember his name, Simeon. He directed the film Dear White People, which was a big hit. That was then took by Netflix, and he adapted it into a TV series under the same name. So he's obviously been on the radar for a while. And it's always said of Donald Glover, this kid's blown up. I mean, I've not seen Atlanta where he's won loads of awards. He drops albums rarely. He's very specific about his career. I couldn't imagine them announcing it and recasting young Lando again, and I don't think we're going to get Billy D as a lead actor on a series. So, I'm curious for this. But the fact they've got a showrunner means it's probably a little bit further down the line than we think.
Yes, sorry, I was just looking at something there. So the next thing that we have, another start. Oh my god, we have so many. So we have The Acolyte, which is going to be a series. Now, this is in this new big thing. I think probably the next big move for Disney Star Wars definitely is this era of the High Republic that we keep hearing so much about. The new characters, the brand new time setting, set so many years. I think it's after the Old Republic clearly, and it's
400 before the prequels. They said so. This kickstarts in January. I'm not looking forward to the era. I'm not intrigued by the books. They've been planning it for 3 years, so there are rumors of animated series down the line. This is clearly a big, we're going to move towards this in the future thing. Sorry to sort of steal the thunder, but it's something that I can't say I care about reading and finding out in the books. I've always said to me, Star Wars is a visual media, not to be snobby. Games, comics, TV series, all of that stuff is great. Really struggle reading Star Wars. That's on me. That's not on other people. That's not on Star Wars as a whole. I'm missing out on a lot of good stuff. But if they're serious about this era, it's not just going to be for books and comics. And this series, Acolyte, is going to... So the showrunner is called Leslie Hyland. She's been announced for this project for about a year or two now, I think. She's done a really big Netflix show called Russian Doll, which I think won a couple of Emmys or was nominated for them. And we didn't know anything until the other day. We just knew she's doing a Star Wars show. And they've basically released a blurb, and it says it's a mystery thriller that will take viewers into a galaxy of shadowy secrets and emerging dark side powers in the final days of the High Republic.
Isn't that just like the most generic premise for a Star Wars property ever? Just evil forces rising up, and the heroes have got to beat them. But it's like, oh, okay, great. Here we go again.
If we get the one line, "Secrets only the Sith knew." She seems really cool in her interviews. She seems to take the piss a lot. She says she reads a lot of Star Wars Twitter. So she kind of like laughed that off, as in like she's a fan, but she reads what everyone says and stuff. So she seems probably more aware than others. But it's a very cool sounding name. I had to double check for a minute that it wasn't the Eternals, because that would be not just a Marvel film, but a Sith Eternal and the cult things. But I'm intrigued for this because now, you know, if you want to take this era seriously, they've set a live action series there, and this is more in development than probably a lot of the other ones here. So again, it's hard to judge until if it's the end of the High Republic. That's even weirder. But then again, I guess, you know, we got the the originals before the prequels, right? So maybe it's not so un-Star Wars after all. But yeah, I need to see a bit more. I want to watch Russian Doll. It's now on my Christmas watch list because things are ramping up. But yeah,
and it's, you know, I've been clamoring for like something new. I keep saying to like Disney, like, give me something new with Star Wars, like a new era, just something. And we're getting it, and I'm kind of going, well, I'd rather have the old Republic. Like that's the one big thing. And, you know, with all the old expanded universe, I think a lot of Star Wars fans, like hardcore Star Wars fans, hold those old Republic games in really high regard. A lot of lore there, a lot of backstory, and so much ground you could cover that would influence what we get with, like, you know, Phantom Menace. It is, you know, like for over 1,000 generations, the Jedi Knights were the Guardians of Peace and Justice, and we'd get all of that. But we're getting the High Republic, which, you know, might be fine. At least it's a new era. We've done Clone Wars. I think Mando is going to be pushing forward between that 6 and 7, so it might be nice to go back and mine some of that ground. I'm going to have to reserve judgment on that one. Oh, the next one, A Droid Story, which is an animated series. So it's going to be Lucasfilm Animation, and they've teamed up with ILM, and they're developing a special series with a new hero guided by R2-D2 and C-3PO. We don't know when this is going to be set, but, you know, it's going to be Anthony Daniels because he is the greatest cinematic character of all time because he plays him. This is going to be like your really like bog standard kids show, isn't it? It's the thing is, like, Star Wars is meant to be for kids. It's always been made for kids. Relatively, it's delved into some adult things. I'd say family thing. Yeah. This is going to be like your really like almost like your toddler show. It's going to be R2 and C-3PO, wacky hijinks.
The only thing that I'm not going to say I'm not excited. I'm not. I'm really intrigued that ILM's involved. That's what's kind of got me, that ILM don't get involved with animated stuff, and they've done a lot of VR things. If this was a VR series, they would have said from the get-go, but for ILM to say, oh, we're going to make an animated series, I wonder if there's a bit more to it, unless I'm overthinking it. But yeah, you know, the fact is A Droid Story is like a Toy Story, or, you know, a Star Wars story things. It'd be nice to actually get R2-D2 at the forefront of something, because that's been my biggest issue amongst the last trilogy. I know that all credit to Rian Johnson. We'll actually discuss that at the end of Lucasfilm. We'll bring that up. We'll talk that very quickly because we go on long videos tonight.
We'll have a mild intermission, I think. Probably after the thing, and we'll reach back out to the piece.
The best thing they did was swap R2 with BB-8 for being on the island, and you got that one great scene of R2 and Luke, and that's probably the only thing R2-D2 did in that trilogy, which is such a shame, because there was a lot more. Well. Really, and that's the thing. So I'd like to get more of them, but yeah, the Droid Story is happening. Moving on, we've got a couple of other Lucasfilm things. Now, I'm leaving this to you because this is something I've never seen. The Willow series that we all knew was in development is happening. I've never seen Willow. I know that Ron Howard directed it, and they've announced John Chu is going to be directing the pilot. Warwick Davis is starring, and the whole series will be released in 2022 on Disney+. I'm going to hold off watching Willow for the first time until just before this airs, but we do know via news reports that it's filming in Wales in the spring.
That makes sense just in terms of the landscape and everything. It's nice that they're actually doing location shooting as well, because I think that's very important for it. Willow, 1988, it's a swords and sorcery movie. It's a fantasy film, and I love that stuff. And for the longest time, this was basically Lord of the Rings before Lord of the Rings. I know Lord of the Rings was a book, and you had like the 70s animated thing, but in terms of live action, it's very similar. You've got like a village of small people who go out on a quest. You've got your mythical landscapes, your greeny kind of Shire village where he comes from, and there's an evil sorceress that need to be. It's a really good film. It's one of my favorites in the genre, directed by Ron Howard, so I can almost guarantee that maybe he'll be directing one of the episodes, or even his daughter, who we've seen directing episodes on The Mandalorian. So I think that would be a really, really great project for her to jump on as well. She's proven herself with that, and that she can, direct really good episodes of TV for it. The only thing I'm worried about, and I'm not going to turn this into a Star Wars sequel trilogy debate at all, but I've seen sequels done so long after the fact with this legacy, and granted, Willow probably doesn't have as big a legacy. Well, it doesn't have as big as legacy as Star Wars does, so it's very different in that regard, but it does have a cult following, and a lot of people do love Willow, especially people that grew up with it. It's very nostalgic to them. I really want this to be good. I need this to be good. The thing is, Willow isn't something that really needs a sequel. It is very much like a self-contained fun adventure film where you beat the bad guy, and then it's all done. That being said, even like Dark Crystal, now I think there was probably more lore to the original Dark Crystal film that could be mined, which they did with, sadly, the Netflix series, which has been cancelled now. I really hope that manages to come back at some point. So in terms of like that fantasy TV series where you can develop this world more, you can go to more places, especially with the technology now, you can do way more things. I'm excited to see that and to see it grow in scope, but I just want them to stay true to the heart of the original. And a big thing as well for me from the original was the music done by James Horner. He's my favorite composer, tragically passed away a number of years ago. I really hope they reuse his themes, because the main theme in that is what gave it so much power and identity to me. So I'd like to see them use some of those original themes in it again. It's one that I'm going to be cautiously optimistic for, but I'm going to have to wait to see footage come out, because some things should just be better left, especially a lot of things from the 80s. Let them be what they were. So I don't know. I don't know what to think. I'm going to have to see things that come out for it, because this could go either way for me. I want it to be good. I really do. But we'll have to wait and see, I guess.
Yeah, and I think John Chu's a fairly big name for, not to say it's unfair that it's fantasy, but it's that John Chu's a fairly big name to bring in for a pilot for a TV series. Now, we know it's got a series order, but it's kind of intriguing. Like I said, I don't know anything. I know that Iceman's in it from Top Gun. I don't think he'll be in the new series. Yeah. I think the last time we'll be seeing him on screen is in Top Gun next year. I think he filmed a cameo, didn't he, as well? So that'll be cool. We get that next year. But yeah, that's what I said. I can't
say maybe we'll have a retro review before the Willow series comes out. Who knows?
Probably be a good timing for it. And speaking of other returns, this is probably the least amount of thing we'll gloss over something this big. Indiana Jones. They finally confirmed that it will be the final film, and it'll be the final time Harrison Ford comes back to playing. I think we all knew this anyway. It's been delayed enough. They reaffirmed the July 2022 release date. And we also know that James Mangold is directing, now officially confirmed. Well, this came out back in March. I think this was going to be announced at the European Disney Plus premiere thing. There was talk of Harrison flying over for that, which I didn't officially tell you. But it just goes without saying it was a bullet point on the schedule. We know this is filming next year. We know there have been script delays, director changes. I'm only excited because of James Mangold. If someone had told me anytime last 5 years Spielberg's walking away, I said, end it now. Bringing in James Mangold, that's a very interesting director for something like Indiana Jones. He's in different films. He's had hits. He's, Logan. I've not seen 3 Tints of Humor, but he did Ford versus Ferrari. He's in The Wolverine. He's done some films I've really enjoyed. And I am excited to see him do Indiana Jones, but it's more that confirmation that this is going to be Harrison's farewell appearance. It's going to be quite sad, and it's really interesting. Someone put online, if Indiana Jones was born in 1899 and Harrison Ford is 78, this film will be set in the 1970s. That is going to be incredibly surreal, but intriguing, depending on what they want to do. Maybe we'll have a Cold War thriller. Who knows?
Well, I mean, we've done Aliens, so we can't. What else can we do? I'm trying to think what else we can do. Where do you go after Aliens? We've done Russians. I don't know. I can imagine this. I don't want this to be like a Logan type film because I don't think that's the right thing to do with Indiana Jones. But could you imagine this film comes out and it's not like Indiana Jones and the whatever of whatever? It's just Jones. And it's like really dark and it's like old man Indiana Jones. And I don't want it to be that film. But it is notable to say that obviously this is the first Indiana Jones film in the series where Spielberg is not returning to direct. If you told me if Kingdom of the Crystal Skull wasn't a thing and this was the first sort of reboot or continuation, and you told me that Spielberg wasn't coming back, I wouldn't be interested. Having seen Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, even in interviews and everything, and I'm not saying that Spielberg half-asses anything, but you could tell his heart wasn't in that film. It's not a project he particularly wanted to do. I think he humored George Lucas a lot with that one because I think it was something that Lucas really wanted to do. It didn't seem like he had a strong grasp over it or to veto any ideas. It just seemed like he was having fun being back, but it's not something his heart was really in. Give a new director a go at it. James Mangold has proven himself before. Whether he can blend that style, because I do think you need to retain some of that Spielbergian whimsy and charm to it, which is in the other ones, just to make it seem like it's part of the series. To me, it should have just ended in 1989 on that final shot riding into the sunset, Last Crusade. If this nothing's going to be able to make up for Indiana Jones 4, but if this is done in a way where I can ignore 4 and have the trilogy and a nice little epilogue, then fair enough. And they've said as well, specifically, this is going to be the last one, which we could probably guess, but this is it. This will be the last Indiana Jones film.
And after yesterday's news, we can guarantee that Sheila Booth, we knew he already wasn't going to be in it, but he definitely won't now. So, if you guys haven't seen that, it's only on the BBC News, so it's never a good sign. One of the last things we're almost into Lucasfilm's probably our biggest talking point in the night, to be fair, people. There's a book being adapted into a film. This is called Children of Blood and Bone. It's a coming-of-age film about a young African girl's quest to restore Magi to a forsaken people called the Magi. This is the only thing that really interests me in this is that it seems original. It's a book adaptation, but Lucasfilm are releasing it via 20th Century Fox, which is kind of cool. It's again, Disney own them, but I like the fact they're still having the 20th Century Fox window. Don't know anything about the book except it's on a New York Times best-selling list, but it's nice to see Lucasfilm doing something else other than Star Wars, Indiana Jones. I mean, was it Red Tails in 2012 was probably one of them. Oh,
God, yeah, you remember that? I don't think I've actually seen that still.
I haven't. It's one of them where, like, every once in a while, like, George Lucas always said, I'm leaving so I can make the films I've always wanted to make, and we never got them. I would like to see Lucasfilm make more films that aren't, I don't want to say original, but it's nice for them as a film company to look at other things other than the franchises they own. So, I don't know anything about it, but I guess it's just an announcement that will happen and the film will come out. Moving on swiftly, if you want to add to that, we have, again, something we already know, the Taika Waititi Star Wars film. We'll probably get into it a little bit more when we talk about Thor later. It's in development, and they claimed it's, quote, fresh, unexpected, and unique. Now, this was...
It's hip. What is that in Spider-Man 2? The buzzwords.
And then Jay's just like, get out. It's only... Yeah. The logo for this, I'm sorry I don't have a photo, looks exactly like the Life of Brian. Monty Python poster logo. Probably doesn't mean anything. It's probably just Taika being Taika. They've obviously, this was, I think, unofficially the 2022 film that was then moved to 2023. Now with Thor having further delays, this now doesn't have the release date. So I think this is 2025. I'm not going to say anything else because the reason why they didn't speak about this is because they had a bigger announcement to make, which came straight after, which probably no one saw coming, not even the websites that normally report these kind of things. Patty Jenkins is leaving the Warner Brothers. There's not even a hype train, is it? She's just getting out of there like they're all going to be trying to do now. And she's going to be directing a Rogue Squadron film for Lucasfilm. This is big. Now, we've not seen the Wonder Woman 2 yet. I'm going to say I've only ever seen the first Wonder Woman that she's directed. She was meant to direct Thor 2, and I believe she left when Marvel got a bit too powerful with creative control, and that led to Natalie Portman falling out big time with Marvel at the time, was how they treated Patty Jenkins. So there's a bit of intrigue there, but I'm surprised this didn't get leaked because I never played the Rogue Squadron games. There were comics, there were games, there was everything. This is between the 80s and the 90s. This was all about Wedge and the pilots, and my law's not there, but she spoke. They did like a video trailer, and I think she spoke that one of her relatives was a fighter pilot. And I haven't seen it. You have. It's very cheesy, but it's a feature film confirmed for cinemas, and this now has the December 2023 release date. That's probably going to be very intriguing. I don't know what your thoughts are on it.
The trailer was incredibly cringeworthy. It seemed very, very overly scripted. It felt very patriotic and manipulative. She was saying, after my father, who was worked in the army and served for this country and died for this country, and it's like, America, you just want to salute the flag. It looks like she's on. It looks like Michael Bay's directed this segment. Yeah, no, Top Gun, and I'm going to bring that up in a second. But it's filmed at magic hour, where it's the sunset, and you've got that orange glow, and it looks like you're on the landing strip and everything. She's in one of the suits, like one of the airline pilot suits from Top Gun or something like that. And she's saying, I've always wanted to work, I finally found the next project I want to work on, which is going to be the greatest fighter pilot film in the world. I was like, excuse me, I think you'll find that that's Top Gun, and that will always be Top Gun. Maybe it will be Top Gun Maverick. Who knows? Because, the stuff that they've done in that film, filming-wise, looks incredible. And then she puts the Rebel helmet on, and you're just down, 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 and then she just walks towards an X-wing, which is being constructed by some very highly paid people at Disney. It's not anything new. I'm not really excited about this, and again, it's hearsay, it's rumors. This is going to be happening. Have a logo. Look at this. This is an X-wing. This is what you know. Give me something new. I've seen X-wings. I've seen X-wings all the way through the sequel trilogy. I continue to see X-wings in Mandalorian, but that makes sense because Mandalorian's 5 years after or whatever. Of all the things, they have the keys to the kingdom. They have Star Wars. They can do anything. And we're just going to get a Top Gun knockoff with X-wings and TIE fighters and Star Destroyers and Rebel cruisers. And let's hope for some Y-wings as well, because they don't get much love recently. I'd like to see more Y-wings. It feels like they're just chasing after, what was that new game that came out fairly recently?
Squadrons. Yeah. That's what I was going to say, that it's because it is that era now. That photo I brought up of Rogue Squadron logo, that's the, not to get canon sad here, that is the new, that's the Resistance style X-Wings, because their engine turbines are in 2. So maybe this is set between 6 and 7, I don't know. I feel like it's a random announcement. I think when Rogue One was announced, people thought Rogue One was going to be Rogue Squadron. So as someone that doesn't know Rogue Squadron, I'm assuming this has to be after Rogue One because they were the first Rogue team of things. Mm-hmm. But I think this is more of a let's one-up Warner Brothers. This was obviously announced way before the news last week of HBO Max, when Warner Brothers decided to delay her film 4 times. I think she probably knows at this point she's probably not going to want to come back. I'm not saying she doesn't, but it's interesting that she's gone to Disney. She's probably the first of those 17 directors that next film won't be at Warner Brothers. Maybe there'll be a video on that down the line. But that was quite a random announcement because it's, again, this is something they probably would have announced at Celebration. Here's 10,000 sweaty people. I'd be one of them. And it's to 9,000 of them, they know exactly what this means. And they're all celebrating. So this is probably something they've had in the pipeline for a while. But the more interesting is that 2023 date. So I reckon she's probably quite far into a screenplay, if she's not already.
Saying back to the December release as well, yes. Maybe. So
and confirming cinema again. That's the one thing that Warner Brothers can't do.
Before we finish, though, George, I'm just stirring the pot, aren't I? Just stirring.
I know it's fine. I know this is coming because I'm in the same category.
I've been waiting. Long have I waited. And not a single mention of that Rian Johnson trilogy that's meant to be happening. Now, that's no coincidence to me. That was, the hype train of Last Jedi had Kathleen Kennedy going, this is the greatest director since Spielberg. I was like, sorry, I'm allergic to, can we swear on this channel? Bullshit. And then as soon as those reviews came out, now I'm not going to deny, a lot of people do love The Last Jedi. Some regard it as the best Star Wars film, second best, whatever. And then other people vehemently hate the film. But as soon as you had that divide and the very loud negative criticism, right from that, I was like, they're not going to go ahead with that trilogy. It seemed like a very impulsive idea after The Last Jedi came out. Because I swear to God, the film had just come out and they were announcing trilogies, films and projects left, right and center. Before, exactly.
maybe they should wait. And I think there's a reason that things have gone quiet on it. And I don't think it's any coincidence that we didn't hear about we didn't even get a logo. We didn't even get an idea, not even mentioned at all. So I don't think that's going to be happening still.
I still think it is. There was, I don't know, I need to find the article from about a year ago. Rian Johnson's obviously making Knives Out 2 first, which I think they've said 2023. Everything on this Lucasfilm slate is dated up to 2023. I'm not saying Knives Out 2 is because of that. There was a report like a year ago saying that his trilogy could be like 7-8 years away. I don't know how many Knives Out films he wants to make.
God.
But what I think they're doing, I think they're letting Rian Johnson have his Knives Out because he had a lot of fun with Knives Out. Was nominated for screenplay and stuff. But you are right, there is that divide, and I don't think it's sensible to do it now. I still think he's getting a trilogy. I still think his trilogy is going to be far different to anything we've seen. But I think they're going to let patience have its thing. Carl said there's too much goodwill the Mandalorian to rock the boat. I think they're playing it safe right now, which is the best way. It's going back to that episode 7 discussion. There was so much pressure on 7. I've always understood why it was the safe one. And to me, this is where obviously everyone splits in two. Episode 7 was safe. What's that cringy saying? One walk so the other could fly. That kind of crap motivational minion quote you'll see on Facebook.
I just feel like Newt Gunray, like, safe.
One day we'll get that Last Jedi discussion, but I do think it's happening. I think we're a couple of years away. I think once he said Knives Out 2 is his priority, he had so much fun writing it. And to be fair, Daniel Craig said the same. I think he's probably looking more forward to Knives Out 2 than probably Bond as well. So we could have a proper discussion on that, but we're an hour and 10 minutes in. And we've just finished Lucasfilm.
Let's take a pause. I think we should do like another socials in case anyone's joined us since the beginning of this stream. We can do one quick list blast of the socials.
Definitely.
So, yep, if you want to.
That's the thing, guys. So, we've just spoke about Lucasfilm. We're going to be switching over to something else briefly. But if you've enjoyed this or if you're here for Marvel, you've still got a while to wait. But we want you to comment along with us. We want to know what your favorite announcement is. Certainly of the Lucasfilm ones we've been through. If you've got a favorite, do comment it. If you like what we've seen today, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We're doing, speaking of Lucasfilm, Mandalorian reviews every single Friday. We've got the final one next Friday, which is quite sad. However, and amongst all that, we've got a lot of other videos coming out. Actually, this is a really good segue. As obviously we're talking Disney, we've got a couple of videos coming out next week, which actually are Disney. We'll go into a bit more online. But Facebook, Cinema Savvy, Twitter @Cinema_Savvy. We're next up going to be talking about the live-action Disney Studios thing. I'm not going to talk about an announcement. I'm going to talk about a lack of an announcement. Because this Thursday is the 10th anniversary of Tron Legacy. One of my favourite films. Films that had a massive impact on me. Music-wise, production-wise, technology-wise, all that stuff. We didn't get any word on the Jared Leto Tron stuff. Again, all this stuff is the next sort of 2 to 3 years, not necessarily after. We know that the Tron new film / series thing's happening. We're doing 2 retro reviews this week. We're going to be doing the original Tron film is going to come up this Wednesday, and Tron Legacy is going to be released on Thursday on its 10th anniversary. So if you're into Disney, if you like Disney content, we've got 2 Tron reviews coming this week. And what we will have before the Tron review, we're cramming in another film.
Oh my God.
We're kickstarting the Creed reviews. Creed begins this Tuesday, the 15th of December. We'll have Creed 2 on Tuesday, the 22nd. But yeah, that's a kind of little ad break where we're not advertising anything but our own content that is kind of related to Disney, I guess, at this point in time.
I was going to say, our schedule for December alone is pretty much exactly as packed as the schedule is for this video that we're doing right now. So hopefully you're staying strong. Hopefully this is giving you some time to go grab some water, go grab a snack or something, because we're going to be moving into the next section of discussion, which is going to be live action Disney Plus and Disney Studios. This one I think is going to be really quick. This
really
is
quick,
a few like date announcements and everything like that. So first and foremost, we're getting a Mighty Ducks TV series sequel. And Emilio Estevez is returning for that. Mighty Ducks was one of those like really enjoyable 90s. I think it was the hockey movie, wasn't it? That was Mighty Ducks, if I remember rightly.
I'm not Charlie's brother, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. I think they did some sequels as well. It was like direct to TV, direct to video. I remember it being really enjoyable. It was just like a sports movie, like a really nice sort of around that Cool Runnings kind of era of Disney. Fine. And like again, like a sporting TV series currently on Netflix. So like Cobra Kai, like the whole sports dynamic and group dynamic, I can see that working very well for that one. Are we going to like take on like 2? Dave from The Life of Brian might like this next one though. Turner and Hooch TV remake. With Josh from Drake and Josh, there are going to be a lot of remake announcements on this, which I'm not keen on. It's like, come up with something original. Is Turner and Hooch a thing that really needs to be remade? Maybe that's up for discussion. I don't know. It just seems a little bit lazy. There's a lot of sequels. There's a lot of live action remakes, prequels. Is there anything original on this list? I don't think there is there? Not inherently.
Yeah, so we'll breeze through. So we've got a remake of Three Men and a Baby, which I've also not seen. Zac Efron's going to be starring in that. Hocus Pocus 2 is getting a sequel. Well, it's obviously getting a sequel. It's called Hocus Pocus 2. Not seen the original. Adam Shankman's directing. A great time to advertise our what's that musical we did a watch along to, which I've forgotten. Rock of Ages. He directed that. He directed Hairspray.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So we've got that. We're getting something that hit me today. Something I didn't know we ever needed or wanted or deserve. We're getting a Cheaper by the Dozen remake. I don't know why. This is all Disney Plus stuff. I don't really care, but you're going to read them out. Another Ice Age film at this point in time. Another Ice Age film is probably. I couldn't tell you what number they're up to now. They're like a poor man's Fast and Furious, where like no one cares. They probably came out the same year. There's probably 8 of each of them. But we love Fast and Furious in this channel.
So you're still following the Ice Age films. Next one, 2022. So get on that.
One I'm actually pretty kind of intrigued vaguely by. Love Night at the Museum trilogy, Loki underrated trilogy. They're getting an animated sequel which had been rumored. It's going to be about his son, but it's going to be animated, so you won't obviously have to have stuff like Robin Williams, Ben Stiller, the original actors. This will be a Disney Plus. I can't remember if it's series or film, but that's an intriguing concept. I'd be intrigued to see what the animation is. Hopefully not the ghastly sort of 3D Pixar-y types. Not saying Pixar's ghastly, sorry. You know this trend, there's like an animated Jurassic Park series that looks terrible. I really want Night at the Museum. I'd love something old school like 2D animation for like Night at the Museum. That could be really cool.
Oh, I'd love to see 2D come back, but I don't think it is.
I don't think so. No. Now to live action. Jungle Cruise was one of the films played many times, starring Emily Blunt and The Rock. They've reconfirmed it's going to have a cinema release and will come out July 2021. A film which probably neither of us want, and the world definitely didn't need any more than the original.
I think it's literally prequel made after Jumanji, perhaps, with The Rock, that jungle setting. The Rock's massive.
Disney Park, Disney. It's an old Disney ride as well. Yeah. We'll bring in Emily Blunt's good box office money. I'm excited for it. But speaking of jungles, we've got the Lion King prequel, which they officially announced was real. They announced it with Hans Zimmer and Pharrell doing the soundtrack, but even strangely, oh my god, I've forgotten the director's name, who did Moonlight. Really big name to do something as cold as this. So he's writing it for his kids, for the younger generations. Like, okay, didn't need a Lion King prequel. I think, am I going to let you speak on that, or should we just move on?
We didn't need a Lion King, but here we are with a Lion King prequel. And just to quote Scar, oh goody, and that's literally all I have to say. I have no opinions. Well, I do have opinions on this. I have very strong opinions on this, but let's move on. Oh, to another delightful bit of news. So the Little Mermaid live action cast has been confirmed, and it's as anticlimactic as you can pretty much guess. Melissa McCarthy as Ursula, need I say more? They could have gone with anyone. I've seen a lot of people say they wish they'd have gone with like a drag queen, because the original design for Ursula was based on a famous drag act at the time. I will not be watching this. I can say that I will be using my get out of jail free card on that film, and indeed every other live action Disney animated remake, reimagining. It'll just be exactly the same as the original, but just inferior in every single way. And another one, we're getting Pinocchio. So I think this has been long since rumored. I think actually, wasn't there a Robert Downey Jr. Pinocchio film that's either still happening, or?
I feel as if the Pinocchio rumors were around before the live action remakes were things. I feel like I've heard these stories forever, but Robert Downey Jr. is producing one. I'm think because is Pinocchio a fairy tale? It's not an original concept. By Disney.
It's based on a book. We had there was actually a really nightmarishly looking live action Pinocchio film that came out like a few months ago. I think that was actually whoever directed that film. It was his second attempt at directing a live action Pinocchio film. I think he was trying to get it right the second time round.
It's like Dark Phoenix.
Exactly. So this one in particular, anyway. So taking that Robert Downey Jr. one out of the equation, this is directed by Robert Zemeckis. Good director. He has done some nightmarish stuff like The Polar Express, which was very, very creepy in hindsight. But this is starring Tom Hanks. I probably won't be seeing this one either. It's not something that needs a remake, but whatever. And then another one, we've got Peter Pan and Wendy. Now this might be interesting. A series. Is this a film? This is a film, I think, isn't it?
Yes, these are both films, both to be released on Disney Plus. So a bit like Lady and the Tramp. If anyone had the pain of going through that, I did. Yeah. Jude Law is playing Captain Hook now. I have not seen the beloved Jason Isaacs as Captain Hook yet. I believe it's meant to be on his.
Oh, he's good. He's good.
Jude Law strikes me exactly as a Jason Isaacs type. That very not upper class British man, but what's the sort of American definition of a British person? And it is that Jude Law thing. So I think Jude Law could be excellent as Captain Hook. It must be coming soon, because he's got so many Fantastic Beasts films that he needs to film. Brackets, he's also criticised Warner Brothers for sacking Johnny Depp. And we have someone called Yara Shadi as Wendy. This is called Peter Pan and Wendy. I'm assuming that this is still just the normal Peter Pan film, but because there's been Peter Pan, Hook, Peter Pan and Wendy, it's in that Fast and Furious category now. But there's been so many attempts, not even by Disney, to be fair. This is one where I don't think people will care just because of the amount of Peter Pan attempts that have been made. There's only one for me, and it's called Hook.
Hook was fantastic, and obviously the original Disney one, they're like head and shoulders above the rest. It's what do you call it? It's similar to Tarzan as well, where after a certain point, it's just open to anyone who can make something. There's a term for it. I forgot what it's called.
It's like is it public domain? Public domain or something like that?
Yeah, Peter Pan's in the public domain, so that's why we just keep getting loads of them. This one might be fun, actually. An Enchanted sequel called Disenchanted. Now, when I first read that, I was like, is it Disney Chanted or something? But at really quick glance, Disenchanted is coming to Disney Plus. I enjoyed Enchanted. It was a nice mix of traditional 2D animation, and then it moved into the live action segments with some really nice over-the-top performances. I think Amy Adams, wasn't it, was the main one in that, if I remember rightly. It was fun, so a sequel could be fun. I don't know why this isn't just sort of coming to theaters, because I imagine that would still make a lot of money. I know that the first one had a lot of fans, but we're getting it on Disney Plus anyway. And finally, the film that you've all been after and all been craving after all these years, Sister Act 3 is happening. So I don't know who's going to do the music. Probably Lin-Manuel, because that guy seems to do everything for Disney recently.
Yeah, I've not seen the original. I've seen clips of the original. I know it's Whoopi Goldberg. Lin-Manuel's everywhere. We get to talk about him again soon. But obviously with Disney getting the Hamilton rights as well, which came out this year, which was obviously reviewed really well. I haven't seen it because I'd rather wait till I can see it in a theatre than on TV at home. But that is on Disney Plus. However, finally, sorry, I will add, I forgot to put the schedule. We have the official logo for Percy Jackson and the Olympians. Obviously, Disney have the rights. To me, I read these books a long time ago. The Harry Potter of Greek mythology, essentially Harry Potter of Greek mythology. They're 10 years old and they turn 16 in the 6th book. Same thing. Film, you had Pierce Brosnan as a horseman, which was incredible because he was James Bond. Maybe if he's been willing to be a horse in the past, maybe he will be Thrawn. Who knows? But Rick Riordan's doing the screenplay for the series. That sends a lot of. That's important that the writer's doing the screenplay. Not worked out so well for Fantastic Beasts, I guess, on this occasion. But that series has the potential to be as big as Stranger Things or bigger. If they can nail that, that's a whole new generation of people. So really optimistic for Percy Jackson. They haven't even started casting yet, so I think we're probably a year off getting even probably filming at this point. But that's potentially Disney's biggest money making for as a not even new IP. It's someone's going to do this IP justice, and it will be as big as some of the franchises can get.
I mentioned to you about the Artemis Fowl thing as well. It's like they can't go down that route because that was Disney taking on another famous book series, a well-loved book series, certainly from our youth as well, because I remember those being in all the libraries at the time. Hopefully they can nail it, and I think like BBC's Northern Lights, the Subtle Knife and everything, if they can make it like that, which I think has been really well regarded, also starring Lin-Manuel. I know that's not Disney, but if they can make it in the same vein as that, I think it could go over very well, and I'd be really curious to check it out, because I actually haven't seen the Percy Jackson films that came out because I heard they weren't up to much, so stayed away from them. We are moving into Disney animated classic territory now. This is my jam. I love my Disney animated classics, and we're kicking off first with Raya and the Last Dragon. It's going to be released at cinemas at the same time, and it's going to have premiere access on the 5th of March. We have had a trailer out for this already, a nice sort of proof of concept, I guess. A little bit of a look at the environments, the main characters, and the feel of it. I'm really liking the look of this one, and it's going to be so nice for Disney to break away from. They were kind of falling into that sequel trap a little bit with Frozen 2, Wreck-It Ralph 2. We were getting a lot of those, and I didn't want them to get mired too much in sequels. It's nice to get some original content, and I'm loving the look of this thing. I don't really know much about the plot. It seems kind of bare bones from the trailer, but I love my Disney animated classics, especially when it's an original property. So more of that, please, Disney. So I'm looking forward to that one for sure.
Yeah, I've not seen the trailer. The big thing of this is the Premier Access is what they debuted Mulan on. You can pay £20. It was here, $30 America to watch this at home. The biggest criticism of Mulan, certainly for let's put this in perspective. Thank you for the 5K views on Mulan. Let's talk before real life politics of death camps. And yeah, just check out the first 15 minutes on why me and Chris boycotted it. That's now.
Don't you just love that we've got Walt Disney at the bottom of the screen, and you're just saying stuff like death camps. It's just take that as a thumbnail. What we just said, like death camps. That was great.
Yeah. So the criticism, pre-criticisms, irrelevant criticism, release criticisms, probably a better way of doing it. Our cinemas were open. They were in Europe. They were open everywhere except in America. And they decided that it wouldn't be released at cinemas. It would only be on Premier Access. Of course, it backfired, which is why Premier Access is not being used for any other Disney film other than this. This is smart. You will be able to watch this on the same day at the cinema as you would at home for Premier Access. So if you're in a family of 4, where a cinema ticket is going to be 40 quid, 30 quid, it will be cheaper for you to buy it and watch it at home. You get it for 4 months access, and then we get it as the public on Disney+. If you're like us, who probably want to watch it, but we're not going to get mobbed off by paying an online fee like that, we'll just go to the cinema with our Cineworld cards and that kind of stuff. So that's what they should have done with Mulan. And I'm glad they're doing it for this because it gives balance to the film fans and to the families. So that's the right thing to do. And also March, again, we don't know what the pandemic is going to be like in March. I've not seen a trailer or nothing. All I know is that Kelly Marie Tran is the voice of the lead in it. So I'm kind of not intrigued by that. I'm more intrigued that it's what you said. They've fell into the sequel trap. I've not seen many of them. Pixar's more my territory, but however, when there is something new, I love Wreck-It Ralph. But that's the most Pixar of the Disney classics. Probably the best way of saying it.
Yeah,
then
that's right. Yeah.
I was going to say Disney are doing their first ever animated series, which is very weird to say Disney classics animated series. And they're everything we've seen before except one. Sorry, no, they are all animated, I believe. We have Baymax, which is about not Ready Player One.
Big Hero 6.
Big Hero 6. That sounds nothing like Ready Player One. I don't know how on earth that's been said. But we're getting the Baymax series, I heard you all were desperately after. We're getting the Tiana series, which makes me think of Melania from Borat 2 series. The animated sequels we're getting there. We're getting a series called Moana. Not that we had a film called Moana, we're getting a series about Moana, and we're getting something called Zootopia Plus that's going to debut on Disney Plus. It's really bad. I've only seen 2 of those 4 films. I think I'm not really bothered. It's interesting they're doing series, but is there really anything interesting about a series to a lead character?
So I know that before this point, I'm not sure what it's called. I don't think it's called Rapunzel. I know they've done a Tangled. I want to say it's called Tangled 2 or something. It was on Disney Plus, and it's it's not the same animation style as Tangled, which was CGI animation, computer animation. It was this really sort of not much detail, blocky 2D animation, not like your classic Disney films. It looked really, really cheap. And I didn't hear much about that. So, I mean, it's interesting that they're sort of going back. I'd rather have this than a sequel. I think, like a direct-to video, or I keep saying direct-to-video. We haven't had videos in almost 20 years. I feel so old. Or even just like a theatrical release. I would rather see this here. I wasn't a big fan of Big Hero 6, but I know it has its fans. And as that was based on like a loose Marvel property, I think you could do a lot of creative stuff there. I could see that being like, a hit TV show with like kids, watching robots and explosions and weird, colorful characters. Zootopia was a cool world. I think the story was told, but obviously animals. This is going to be your stuff geared for like really, really little kids, I think.
Yeah.
And I think it's good that Disney Plus does have that. It has that variety with stuff now. Loads of variety now, especially because they're getting the 18 rated stuff too. Tiana, now Princess and the Frog, I think is one of the most underrated Disney classics still to this day. It is the last traditional 2D hand-drawn animated film they've done. So it always holds a special place in my heart. I'd love to see them go back to it. So if they're going to do these sequels, I'd like to see them honor that animation style. Then again, remembering back to Wreck-It Ralph 2, there was that moment where they had all the Disney princesses and they were all updated in computer animation. So I don't know how I feel about that. Moana, I don't like that they're calling it the same title as the damn film. They should try and change that. But again, I could see, set on the island, adventures going out into the water. They'll probably throw the animal sidekicks in it, like the little pig and the chicken in it loads. It's going to be all that stuff geared to the really little kids. I don't know if I'll check them out. I might check out an episode or two, but I can't imagine it's something that's going to grab my attention. I'll just stick with the theatrical films.
Yeah, and then with those, you're right. The thing of Disney is so hard to forget that they are tailored for kids. Ultimately, that's what Disney is. Granted, that it's adults that pay for it and do all that. They will make content for that age group. So it is really, isn't it? Such a simple premise, but I think we all get lost in it. And you are right; it's not really made for us.
You have to keep reminding yourself of that, I think, as well. Yeah. Every time I go and see a Toy Story film, I will say Toy Story is like, this isn't made for you. This is made for me.
This is ours. Yeah, it's like we claimed it. But then we've got an announcement of a new a sci-fi series for Disney. They team it with an African production company called Kigali. It's going to be a series called Iwaju, which is a sci-fi animated series. No idea other than that. But there's at least I don't think have they done sci-fi before. That's not Wreck-It Ralph. That doesn't even count. That's
I guess Treasure Planet was sci-fi or kind of like steampunk kind of look to it. That's a really good point. No, I think in the main line of films, no, I think that's been it. I guess there's Atlantis as well, which was a bit sci-fi, I suppose, but it is interesting. I don't know anything about it, so sure. The next one is going to be the big one for me. I think they've said this is coming out next year. Did they say it was next year, I think?
Yeah, next year, yeah.
So this is Encanto. There was a very, very small teaser trailer. Again, it was more like a proof of concept one. You saw like this magical house. It's set in Colombia. Again, resident favorite Lin-Manuel Miranda is doing the music. And there's Byron Howard and Jared Busher directing it. And they've worked loads on previous Disney animated features before. It's an original IP again. It's another Disney animated classic, so it'll be fine. It kind of reminded me a little bit of the look of, say, like Coco or something like that, or even the recent Pixar film we had, Onward. It sort of looked like a mix of that. They mentioned it was all about magic in this magical kingdom or this magician or something like that. We don't know anything else beyond that, but it's an original animated film, so I'm all okay with that.
Yeah, I'm just going to get used to the name. Encanto Bite. That's why. But no, it's nice for them to do something original because it feels, as a pitch, it feels more Pixar than Disney classic. But I'm guessing the moment that first trailer comes out, time will tell that it's probably an outright classic. So I'm intrigued. The directors have done a lot of the other stuff like Zootropolis. What's it? Zootropolis, Zootropia. Depends what country you're in.
Yeah, exactly.
It's one of them. But I think because last time they announced loads of films together and it was all very hush-hush quiet, like they announced like 5 years worth. I remember certainly Pixar did a couple of years back. They're like, we're doing Incredibles 2, Toy Story 4, this 2, that 2. And it was like, whoa. And then there's Coco tucked in there. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting that we're finally going to get something new from Walt Disney Classics because I think they said it's the first time they've ever really had an approach to these D23 like event type things. They tend to be quite quiet. So I think rather than announce it like Pixar, they tend to announce it when it's probably already almost made. Well, certainly when they've got dates in mind of when it being finished. So I think that does help them quite a lot. But that's all we had from the Disney Classics. Moving on. Pixar. To be fair, we've pulled it back. We've got two more. Yeah. We've got Pixar and Marvel.
Big one last. Again, last one last.
The Marvel's gonna be fun. Pixar have returned, as we said. They like to announce lots of things in advance, and we got a very good insight today. First up, obviously, they've reminded everyone that Soul's going to be out on Disney Plus on Christmas Day, which is probably going to be really depressing. With it, there's going to be a new short film, as the Pixar's always had at cinemas. This one's called Burrow. It will premiere with the film on Disney Plus. I don't know if they're going to make you watch this before you watch Soul and make it unskippable.
Well, at least it's actually like a Pixar animated short this time, and not like the Simpsons Maggie animated short that we got at the start of Onward. That was strange.
That was really weird. It was, this is the first new thing I've watched of The Simpsons since The Simpsons movie. And it was really weird. It worked, but it didn't need to be The Simpsons. The short story would have worked for anyone of anything. It was very strange, but it'll be nice to see it. And they should make it unskippable so that the kids have to sit through it like what we used to have to do when we were kids. I still remember going into watch Inside Out and they played that volcano one, and I thought I was genuinely in the wrong screen. But
I'll say that's one of the strengths though of Disney Plus. Maybe not the fact that it is going to be like a separate thing on there, but the fact that they have put like loads of these like older shorts, and not just Pixar shorts as well, even like the really, really old black and white Disney animated things like Steamboat Willie and things like that. It's nice that there's a hub where you can go and choose to watch some of those shorts, because honestly some of the shorts are fantastic, like as like little short film pieces. They're really beautiful.
One Man Band, I love that one. When I was at the Giacchino concert, I think it's one of the first things he ever composed, and they played the short film with an orchestra playing all the music with it. But it was really jarring because obviously it's one man in a band and then it's an orchestra underneath it. But I can moan about it, but I used to love the little stuff like that. As a kid, it's just another trailer, but it's when you hit that adult age, it's like, oh, they're actually short films attached to it, not mistakes on my end. But yeah, and then a Disney Plus thing. There's currently a series airing called Inside Pixar, essentially a documentary series about the studios themselves. More episodes are coming out over the next few months. I've not watched any of it. I didn't know this was a thing. I love those kind of documentary insights you get on Disney Plus. The really obvious thing about all forms of in-house documentaries on in-house streaming services is that it's obviously made in-house. It's going to be, why is it so great to work for X, Y, and Z? If people do like Disney Plus, check out the Pixar in real life shorts. They're pretty fun. They're scripted as hell, but they're like, here's Pixar in the real world. And they just do it on New Yorkers because they're the most gullible. Moving on. There's going to be some more mini shorts coming January 2021 about classic characters they did not reveal to us. I don't know if this is going to be like, we're going to get a 1 minute Woody scene, and then it's going to it'll be a caterpillar from Bug's Life. Maybe we're going to get like 8 shorts about the Bug's Life characters, and together that will be like the MCU of an 8-minute Bug's Life sequel, which I'll get to later on.
I was going to say, I'm going to let you get onto your Bug's Life rant because I'm right there with you, but you can take the helm on that one. So this mini short thing, January next year, I guess it clashes with my birthday. That's nice if I want to watch some Pixar. But I'm as attached to these characters as I am. I just leave them in the films. I don't need, just milking it dry, especially a character that's getting his own film later on, which I'll talk about, and that'll be my rant, I guess. We've both got a rant in this Pixar section. So other series they're doing, we've got Doug Days. So Doug is the dog from Up, the squirrel. That guy, he's getting his a spin-off series in the fall of 2021. It's going to be geared towards the little kids, isn't it? Again, we've moved on to your rant now. So Cars, everyone's favorite Pixar trilogy, and yes, you did hear right. It's a trilogy. There are 2 spin-off films with planes and Planes 2 Fire and Rescue. Well, if you couldn't get enough of Cars, there's a TV series coming out in the fall of 2022. Mark your calendars. It's going to be a spin-off series. I've heard some people say it's a sequel series. But yeah, we're getting more Cars. We need to shift more of that merchandise. But we exist in a world where we've had an Incredibles 2, a Monsters, Inc. prequel, a Finding Nemo sequel, cool. A quadrilogy of Toy Story films, as well as a number of shorts. I think the only one besides Ratatouille and Up, WALL-E, is a big one which has long deserved a sequel, ages deserved a sequel, and that is A Bug's Life.
This is without a doubt my biggest issue. The best thing of Disney Plus when you first get it is you get to set off this, or what is my avatar going to be? Who do you go for? Obviously, I picked Kylo Ren. And it was great. And I remember looking through all the options. And I remember getting to the Pixar one. And there it was, a stark reminder of how inferior they treat these poor people. There were just a couple of Bug's Life avatars at the end.
Or is it like 1 or 2 or something? Yeah.
It's probably 2. And I just sat this, this is unacceptable. And I'm not going to be this 24-year-old moaning on the internet about something that came out when he was 3. Bugs Life, I had on VHS. I have it on Blu-ray. It's one of my favorite Pixar films. They killed Kevin Spacey. That went really well with age. The whole, one ant stand up to us, they all might stand up. Modern politics, socialism, all that kind of stuff. Bugs Life is the key. This is what my generation grew up with. And you have robbed us of everything. It's like one day, like you've took everything from me. And Pixar's like, I don't even know who you are. And here we are in 2020 talking about a spin-off sequel series to the Cars trilogy. Cars have their own cinematic universe. They had the likes of Michael Schumacher and Lewis Hamilton cameo in them. But you're telling me, yes, Michael Caine as well. You're telling me that there was no room, there was no money, there was nothing to warrant a Bugs Life sequel or a follow-up. And you know what really insulted me? Someone on my Twitter pointed this out to me today. Yesterday. In their National Geographic announcements, which we're not covering tonight, they announced a documentary series called A Real Bugs Life. And I kind of just sat there.
They know. This is just rubbing that salt in the wound.
Those photos of like Tarantino standing alone in his dining room, just staring at walls. I just kind of sat there and you're just taking the mick now. All I want is to see this caterpillar be a beautiful butterfly. We have been robbed of so much. So much was set up. They even had Toy Story 2 cameos.
I was going to say that the closest we've ever come. Yeah, I was going to say the closest we've ever come to a Bugs Life sequel was one short outtake at the end of Toy Story 2. And that came out in 98, 99? Or is it early 2000? Either one, that was it.
And I've reached this point of sadness where I think I've accepted. I see all these kids hyping up Incredibles 2. I've waited my entire childhood for the Incredibles 2. I'm sorry, but the Bugs Life deserves more from Disney. We have been robbed. I've been robbed. I've reached this point where I've fully accepted this isn't going to happen now. But it does not help but bring anger when I see things like Cars 4. Essentially, this is Cars 4, right? Do we really need a series about the friendship of Mater and Lightning McQueen? Is the trilogy not already about Lightning McQueen?
Each of the film is about that, I think. It's the same story, isn't it?
Imagine, sorry guys, here's Toy Story 5, but it's actually about the friendship of Wood and Buzzy. And you can't not Buzzy, Wood and Buzzy.
Wood and Buzzy.
And I was
is that when Sid picks them apart and puts them together in a hybrid version?
I think I've said that before. But imagine if they did that and sorry, it's about the friendship of the pair of them. And I'm like, but that's the point of the first 4. Granted, maybe not the 4th one as much, but yeah, we've reached this stage where one day Pixar will pay for what they've done. We're having long-term justice for Spider-Man 4. We're finally getting to that level of where we should be at. Maybe Bugs Life will follow one day, but until that day comes, I can't help but sit here of 10. This was the last thing I said. You need to move on, but of 10 Pixar announcements, and there is nothing for Bugs Life 2. It leaves nothing but anger in my mind. So I'm going to go to my Bugs Life happy place.
I got to bring up this comment. I have to. I'm sorry. Life of Brian, Wood and Buzzy is the porn parody. Yeah, that's probably a thing. Let's get our petitions to Disney Plus then for a Bugs Life 2. Thank you, everyone. Let's start the signatures.
You said it. You want to see the flying circus.
Yeah, Peter, that could have been an animated series. All these, we're getting Doug Days, we're getting Lightyear. I'll get onto that in a second. Just give me PT Flea's Amazing Circus. That's all I need. Anyway, moving on. Another thing that isn't a Bug's Life 2, we've got Win or Lose, which is an original animated series, and apparently each episode is going to be told from a point of view of a different sports team, and then by the end of the series, it's all going to converge. Like the MCU, and we're going to have that team up. That's coming out at the fall of 2023. I don't really have any thoughts on that. I guess the structure could be pretty cool, but I'm not really interested in that. Now we are getting into the interesting things. These are the big Pixar feature films that are coming out, the next few projects. So the first one they announced, which I actually didn't find out about today. There's I think Lightyear got the you know, the front and center. That was the big focus, but there's another 2 that are in the works. So we've got Luca. So that's an original film that's coming out the June of 2021. And it's a celebration of 2 friends called Luca and Alberto. It's set in Italy. I think it's going to be similar to Coco in that it's going to be honoring the heritage, the environment, and the food, the culture, the music, probably, and everything in between. And it seems like Pixar are moving more into this territory now, of sort of these more personal human stories. We had Coco, we've got Soul coming out, and this looks like it's going to be almost completing that trilogy, I would say, of sort of real life films. And then the next one, Turning Red. They've said this is going to be coming out in March 2022. Now, the guy was pitching the film, and I watched this before we went live because, again, this was another announcement that I completely missed or was overlooked in the sea of announcements. So he started off saying that Turning Red is about a girl who's 13. She's struggling to fit in. Her identity, relationships are changing. Her body's changing. She doesn't know what's going on. And I did fear the worst when he said her body's changing and I saw the title Turning Red. I did expect it to be, as you mentioned before, like, is this going to be about like Carrie or something? And then he hits you with the zinger whenever she gets excited, she turns into a giant red panda. And he just kind of let that sit. And he said, March 2022. And then he moved on to the next thing. And I was still kind of reeling from the absurdity of that. Like, where does that come from? Is there like a furry in the offices at Pixar that really wants to just see like a giant realized red panda? I don't know. That seems too out there and weird for me, but it is an original Pixar film, so I probably will be going to see it when it comes out. And then the big one, which topped it all off, which I actually don't know if we have differing opinions on this, or maybe
I think we do.
We've got Lightyear, which is coming out in June 2022. And the guy, as soon as he read the name out, he said, now you might be thinking, oh, this is another Toy Story film. And you would be wrong. We kind of are. It's tied in vaguely. So the conceit is that we've got Chris Evans is doing the voice of Lightyear, and this is going to be sort of the original inspiration for what would eventually become the toy of Buzz Lightyear. I'm not quite sure where George has gone yet, but I'm going to carry on. So apparently Buzz Lightyear, the toy that we've seen in all of the Toy Story films before this point, was based on this guy. Now, I think this guy is a character in a film. And the guy who was doing the press conference basically said that this is going to be that film. We always imagined, I think he said, when they made Toy Story 1, we always imagined that Buzz Lightyear, the action figure, was based off a character in a hit blockbuster film. We are now getting the opportunity to tell that story. This, to me, is a film that doesn't need to be made. Okay. No, hide it. I just saw it. Don't give the game away. This is not a film that needs to be made, in my opinion. Just let Toy Story should have finished at Toy Story 3. We didn't need a Toy Story 4, but we got one, and we certainly don't need a spin-off. And if you do want a spin-off, there was a Buzz Lightyear spin-off, which came out in the mid-2000s. Nice little animated TV series with his adventures at Star Command and the Space Rangers. But go on. Go ahead and show what you've got, because I'm about to die of nostalgia.
This is one of the best additions I ever made. This was my celebrating getting a new job, and I left my old one. This is my Buzz Lightyear signature collection toy. This is pathetic. He's a grown man with a Buzz Lightyear toy. So these came out in Toy Story 3, and they were like 60 quid retail, and they were rare, and all of them were going for hundreds. And I spent years trying to get them down for under £100, and I never could. The wings are inside, but I won't open them, so it would be the whole thing. Now, there's a reason I've got this out. Buzz Lightyear was my man. I know you're more of a West. I mean, you like sci-fi, but very much I've always thought your favorite was Woody and mine was Buzz. And I think there are tropes of that. I know you like your Westerns more than I do, but I know you love sci-fi, so it's a really stupid comparison. But Buzz Lightyear as a kid was always mine. You know, I had a Woody and Buzz and kids, but I did not have this, the proper thing. And when Toy Story 4 came out, they re-released the entire Toy Story signature collection. Now, I've got the aliens up there to coincide with him. They are as kids, after all. But they were a dangerous thing to buy in. This is what the toy is like. So here we have on the back of it. And it is exactly as it is in Toy Story. They have a little speech. They have his speech. And it says, Buzz Lightyear, I'm stationed at the Gamma Quadrant. You know, the whole speech. I'm not going to say it. And yes, so it even has a certificate of authenticity. Doesn't mention a movie.
Oh, we've lost George. This always happens. We have lost George. Give it a few seconds. Oh, hang on. There we go. Is he back? Is he back? There we go.
Sorry, I lost it during a nostalgia bit. So there was nothing written on the back, so it's really dusty. That's why I had to go off camera because I didn't want to like lift up this dust machine since up in the wardrobe. Yeah, so it doesn't mention on the back of this about being a movie. Now I'm not bothered about that. I thought, okay, I wonder if the advert from Toy Story 1 has any reference because that's when he finds out he's a toy. And I watched it this morning, not the whole film, just there's a 1 minute advert, and it just says, now buy the galaxy's greatest superhero as a toy. Now, I'm not going to defend Pixar for this. This is more Toy Story canon, I guess we can go into now. This is news to me. And this is news, I think, to the world. And part of me, I think if I'd have known this a week ago, I'd be disgusted. Buzz Lightyear spin-off. However, there's something about this project that I really want to see. Now, there's obviously some things. Captain America, Chris Evans, is voicing him. I thought that this was like, oh, it's a real-life man. And then they said that this is a film within the Toy Story universe. So I kind of get that because it's kind of... I said it to you yesterday, right? Didn't I? That imagine if like Darth Vader was a toy and they released Star Wars like 25 years later. It's basically like that. And I'm really sold. And I thought I'd be against this. And maybe because Buzz didn't get much to do in the last two films. You know, Toy Story 2 is my favorite, and it's no coincidence that Buzz has the most to do in that film. The whole core is him going after and bringing back Woody. But it's news to me. And I don't know. I just wanted to show this to everyone again. I'll put it away because it's in impeccable condition.
That's so nice. Yeah.
You can get them. They made so many last year that there is no black market now. So if people want them, you can get them. But like I think the most expensive one left is Lots of Hugging Bear because they didn't release him and he smells of strawberries apparently. Another story for another time.
I don't know if it still smells of strawberries if it's been released for about 10 years at this point. But the last thing, Carl's brought up something here, and I do agree with this. As much as I like Chris Evans, it should have been Tim Allen. I absolutely agree. And if you're going to make an action figure of a character based in a film, you'd have it be the same voice, wouldn't you? Like if you're going to have the buttons, it would be the same voice recording. So I know he sounds noticeably older now, Tim Allen, but it should have been him.
Space Ranger.
He's got the whole speech. Sorry, it's really tempting. And that's the thing. I get the Tim Allen thing because that's the thing that does it most. Is it still talking?
Yeah, it's still talking.
I'm going to put this down in case it carries on. I wonder how Tim Allen feels about it. I'm sure they must have.
Sorry, oh God, you started something there.
Every time I say Tim Allen, it starts talking. I wonder if he's comments on it. It's quite sad because he is that character, and I'd have liked to have had him a go, but at the same time, like, it's Captain America, man. Like that's a really good segue. Are you still there? Sorry, it's still talking to me.
Has the toy actually come alive now? We saw in Toy Story 4 they can now interact in the real world with people. People can hear them.
Well, yeah, and oh God, this is going to annoy me now. I keep thinking someone's going to come in my room, but it's Buzz Lightyear. Right, sorry, where was I? Yeah, like I'm looking forward to this. The big thing, this strikes me as a big cinematic thing, and they've reaffirmed that it's going to be a film at cinemas. This could have been a Disney Plus spin-off film show thing, but this is an actual cinema blockbuster release, so this might be one of Pixar's most adventurous things. Mate, I just want to see Emperor Zurg. Why is it still talking? I'm so sorry. We're going to stop talking about Pixar and we're going to try and get Marvel done. It's just going to be Tim Allen shouting in the background.
Carl just mentioned, and I agree with this as well. It feels like they've picked him just because he's popular at the moment. Definitely. And he's not in the MCU films anymore, is he? So as far as we know, his schedule is very, very free. I think we'll take another little quick socials break just before we get onto our big final section. We're going to be tackling Marvel. So arguably saving the best to last, definitely the one that we got the most footage from and like actually fully realized trailers, which is really exciting, and their entire phase 4 catalog as well, including TV shows and films. But before we get into that, we want to hear from you. Carl has commented along. We've had a few other comments along the way. Let us know some of your favorite announcements as we're going through. So we've just tackled the animation side, the Disney animated classics, Pixar and the live action Disney Studios films. And now we're going to be moving on to Marvel really quickly. If you want to follow us on socials as well, Facebook, Cinema Savvy, Twitter at Cinema_Savvy. Oh, we're almost done. We're coming up to 2 hours. We knew this was going to be a long stream, but look at that. This is the one that we need to talk about. This is the big one. So
some of this is going to be quick, guys. Some of this will be quick, but I think this is going to be a conversation about Marvel, perhaps more so than these individual films at some point.
And the ramifications.
Should we say that for the end? Should we smash this news and then we'll discuss our issues at the end?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and big thank you to everyone who's been sticking with us as well throughout this entire stream. You guys are absolute troopers. So, I guess we'll start with the big trailers that came out for this thing. Yeah. It really was that trifecta. We had WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, and Loki. These have been confirmed ages, and we've already had trailers for I think WandaVision before this point. But I want to say this was the first time that we got Falcon and Winter Soldier and Loki. So we'll talk about WandaVision first. So this is being released on January the 15th. It's going to be 6 episodes. And I think how you've said it is, how it's going to be scheduled is that one series is basically going to end where the next one starts. So get used to watching Marvel content for a long time, folks. It's going to take up the majority of the year, I think. The first trailer came out for WandaVision and it was weird. It was going with this kind of 50s sitcom kind of vibe. The canned laughter, the studio audience, think like Happy Days, Bewitched, those kind of old shows. And I actually really like that style of show as well. I used to watch a lot of that kind of stuff as a kid. But my biggest fear, and it's still kind of my biggest fear at the moment, especially when we got onto Loki as well, is that it's going to undo a lot of the sacrifices that were made during Infinity War and especially Endgame. Now, granted, I don't know much about the premise or what's going on. It looks like they're trapped in some kind of weird television studio purgatory world. It looks very Truman Show-esque, where they know that something's not quite right, something doesn't feel right, maybe they're trapped in some kind of reality and they need to break out. And I think we get more of a sense of that with this trailer that got released for this thing. We see them in the full costumes, and I think we see the Soul Stone as well reassembling. And it was that moment where I'm worried, because I'm thinking, are we just going to get Vision back in the MCU? There's a moment in one of the other trailers as well in Loki where we see Black Widow in a really quick shot, if I remember rightly. And it's like, are we going to go back and just resurrect all these characters that died? And I really hope that's not the case, because if that's the case, granted, you're going to be filling your character roster for phase 4 of characters that you can continue to use. But I think looking back as the Infinity War saga, as a complete saga of 20-odd films, I think that's really going to hurt the ending, because nothing will have mattered, essentially. Everything will be undone.
This is my thoughts exactly that. I didn't like the first trailer, maybe because it was so unfamiliar. And Wanda, they've kind of teased it. We know it. She is the most powerful Avenger. Not to get that discussion. People want to say Thor and this and that. It is Wanda. And they've kind of politely said that a lot as well. Kevin Feige has. That's why they had a locked away with Vision for a film. I think it was that in Civil War when he tried to keep her at the base. They obviously made her dust so that she couldn't appear until later on in Endgame. And let's be honest, she was about to destroy Thanos until he had them rain fire on her. I'm intrigued by this now, because I think this whole thing is her either in some base far away by herself, or it's all going on in her head. I think there's things happening in this which we're not going to know about, which leads on to a further point, because she's going to be in Doctor Strange, the Sam Raimi film, in the Multiverse of Madness. And she's clearly she clearly is the most powerful Avenger now. And I really hope Vision's dead, politely put. I don't want things being undone. I say things being undone. It's one thing to bring back the ones that were dusted, which we knew would happen. Mm-hmm. But if you start going back, and the definitive kills is probably the best term, is Iron Man, Black Widow, Vision. Were there any others? I think they're the definitive. Loki's not definitive.
At the main cast, you had Heimdall, who gets a mention again in Loki. I guess you could say Loki as well, but I know that it sort of branched off in a different timeline, didn't it?
Yeah, this is the thing. Because of what they did in going back in time, and he got that thing, which we'll get to. I don't know what's going to ramify with that. I love the fact that the first scene of Infinity War was Loki dead.
Yeah.
I've said to you before on record how the Beer Farm, which is one of my favourite cinemas, and that was one of my least favourite experiences, because it was just pockets of different fandoms throughout. And it was really hard to focus at some scenes. And when he did die, it did have this incredible gasp, and I could just feel all the Tom Hiddleston fans crying. That was sensational. I love Tom Hiddleston as Loki, but I think he's a character that's been so overdone. So I don't know why I'm talking about Loki, sorry, I should be talking about WandaVision. I'm intrigued by it. I'm glad it's 6 episodes. I feel like they're going to be short as well. I think The Mandalorian has shown us with Disney Plus. 1 week it can be 55 minutes. 1 week it can be 32 or 28. I can imagine most of the WandaVision ones clocking in at 30. It strikes me as that because it's got the sitcom vibe. I wonder if they're even 20 minutes a piece. It looks like they're going through eras of TV, and I think there's a purpose to it. So I'm intrigued by it, but I'm really worried if it is true. When the Soul Stone crops up, that's a big name drop for now. The Infinity Saga's done. The Infinity Stones should be done with it. I don't think they're going to bring Vision back. I think something's going to happen, and the end point of this is that she is lost in the multiverse, and Doctor Strange is going to have to come and save it. That's where I think MCU is heading. But I don't know if that's a good segue onto really quickly to mention that Doctor Strange, they changed the release date to March 2022. We know it's filming right now in London. Sam Raimi's directing it. We know that I always forget her name. Olsen, it's not the twin.
Oh God, the Olsen. Oh Jesus, Elizabeth. I think it's Elizabeth.
Olsen, yeah. Elizabeth Olsen's in Doctor Strange, and one of the most incredible ones, because when I got home, I did watch the Marvel panel live. I was at some point sober at this point, and I was able to process all of this. And this is incredible. I was like, Spider-Man is going to be in Spider-Man, whatever the film name is, and that's going to come out in December 2021 and will involve the multiverse. Moving on. So that's all they wanted to say. Whether Sony owns the announcement rights, I didn't want Tobey Maguire to be revealed on a Disney corporate video. No, thank you. That's got to be a San Diego moment, right? If they're going to do Comic-Con next year, the return of the Chosen One, Tobey Maguire, with Hayden Christensen. We are living in 2002, and that's the key. But WandaVision is a weird one. I'm happy we're going to get new TV because I don't follow TV too much. But it's when they started saying release dates and I clocked it's like these are all. I think there's a 1 week gap after each series finishes. If we're going to move on to the one I think we both in agreement on is probably the most exciting thing is Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We finally got a trailer for the series. We kind of knew. There were rumors that it was going to be way more like the Captain America films. It was that kind of grounded within reality, but a bit you're taking the superhero and putting them in reality. I know that is what the MCU is, but this is that the way that we always spoke about the Russo brothers and their interpretation of how they wanted to do it felt more natural, political, espionage. This feels like it's directed by those.
Absolutely.
Sensational. And the other thing you mentioned, I would let you speak a minute like a film. This to me, this is what the benefit of Disney Plus is. Falcon and Winter Soldier aren't big enough to have a film. Yes, it would make money, but a film must, to me, constitute something bigger, something more important. And Falcon and Winter Soldier, I think, is perfect for TV. A high-budget TV series. Maybe it is more espionage. I think it benefits these two characters rather than forcing them into a 2.5-hour narrative where it must end with big fight and big explosions. Give them a TV series.
And you have got like fights and explosions in this, like, don't get me wrong, like you get that final sort of the hero shot, I always call it, and I really miss those in films. I'd like to see more films do that. You had the epic swing away moments at the end of the Sam Raimi trilogy. You had the Batman hype of the earlier Nolan films, or even like the Tim Burton ones. It's the moment where the hero is just like flying away or swinging or whatever he happens to be doing. The hero doing what they do best, and that's like your final shot. And we get that with this trailer as well, where Falcon's sort of like ducking and diving and weaving between this canyon, and it looks incredible. And we've seen what they can do on Mandalorian, even with other shows as well, like Game of Thrones. Visually, what you can do on a TV show now, it can look just as good as a film. And this one did. This to me felt like Captain America 4. And why I say that is that, granted, Captain America himself isn't around now, but what I love the conceit of this is that people need that, the Captain America mantle, the name. They need, you see marches, you see parades, you see people cheering for him and waving flags and everything. They need that patriotism that Captain America brought. And I think that you're going to have that, where you're going to have Falcon and Winter Soldier. Now, Falcon was given the shield, whether he's going to use it, or I think in the comic book, does it get passed to Bucky? I'm not sure. I don't really know the comic books, but it's going to be them having to come to terms with that. They are going to have to rise to the occasion of a Captain America type figure while still staying true to themselves. I don't really know much what's going to go on with the plot of this thing, but You've got a great sort of like double act dynamic going on with it as well. They're recreating the moment where they're sort of like walking or running side by side as well, which has been done before. This is hands down, like out of all the Marvel announcements or like at least Marvel shows, this is head and shoulders above the rest because it feels like it's a story that needs telling. To me, WandaVision, I'm going to reserve judgment on it until I've seen it, but on paper, I'm like, what's the point of that? Loki, it's just like, okay, well, that's the fan service because all the women love Tom Hiddleston. You know, there's to appease them. This feels like the one that would be most deserving of a film. But as you said, like it's probably not big enough. The name of it doesn't carry weight as a Captain America or Thor or Iron Man or whatever. It looks fantastic. I'm really looking forward to this one. And 6 episodes as well. It's 4 less than the Netflix series, or actually no, the Netflix series were like 13 episodes, 13. I think, weren't they? Yeah. And the majority of them towards the tail end, you could feel the padding, you could feel it dragging on. And we kept saying, I think, especially when you got to Luke Cage and Iron Fist, or even Jessica Jones, this would have been better if they'd have docked the episodes down a bit. So it's not quite Mandalorian level with 8. They've pulled it down to 6. And I think they even did that with Obi-Wan Kenobi, haven't they? So I think 6, it's that really, it's that tight storytelling. And I hope it is that case because I'm really looking forward to this one.
And again, it's that differentiation of time. I could see some of the Falcon Winter Soldier ones maybe being 45 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. This one feels like it's going to be like, I'm so excited for this. Everything about this one that's come out looks really positive, from the whole fake Captain America, the public eye. We're going to get the politics. We're going to get all of that stuff. And I just hope it pays. It's what he said. It looks like Captain America 4, and I think that's what they're going with. So I'm really optimistic. And I mean, considering all these are coming out before the first Marvel film next year in May, the fact we're getting 2 Marvel shows before Black Widow's release is pretty big. But the third of 4 Marvel shows we had a trailer for is Loki. Loki. We've kind of said fan service a lot. I don't know if the Loki rumors were around before Endgame came out, but the moment he got the Tesseract, which is in the trailer, they showed the Endgame clip. The moment he sort of popped off, I was like, "Oh, Loki's live in this universe again."
That's a setup for something.
And I kind of said definitive kill earlier. That's what I loved in Invincible. Like, if anyone could have come back from the click, it shouldn't have been Loki. It shouldn't have been Heimdall. Obviously, Iron Man died. Black Widow died. Loki. And I was like, okay, as a series, I'm intrigued to see what they want to do with it. And then the trailers come out, and I'm completely sort of not looking forward at all. Maybe a second trailer will help, but
it looks like Doctor Who starring Loki. I don't know if you got that impression. It's sort of him.
I thought it was some weird, like, oh, he's an Iron Man 1 because he's in the middle of a desert, like he's just landed. My vibe is a poor man's Thor Ragnarok. You open this world, and suddenly he's thrust into this new world, and there's all these rules, and there's this city, and there's people ruling it, and he's been brought in from the outside look. And Owen Wilson's playing Iron Man's dad lookalike. It's obviously not his dad, but I don't know. I was really lost watching the trailer for this. I'm not excited for it. And I think I like Loki in the first Thor. The second one, we all knew that he would turn on him and do something. I know we've got different thoughts on Ragnarok. I loved Ragnarok for everything it did. The whole Loki being, in the games and all that stuff. He's a character that's overstayed his welcome. Now, Tom Hiddleston is phenomenal as Loki, and that's the key. No one expected the Avengers to be as good as it was, and a lot of that is down to how Tom Hiddleston was as a villain. I didn't think he'd be able to carry a film as a villain, and he did. But this anti-hero statement, sometimes less is more. Ironically, I say this off the back of like 8 Star Wars announcements. For a character like Loki, who's been around, and we all know he's that sneaky guy that's got a trick up his sleeve. Like, we're going to get that for 6 episodes straight. And Loki. I think I'm at a tipping point with him, and we'll get to it later. But to back, like a Falcon Winter Soldier is going to be such a blessing that it's at least it looks like different genres. Like, you've got the weird sci-fi comedy type thing at the start. You've got a grounded drama, and then we're going to have the weird fantasy. Doctor Who's actually a really good comparison.
It looks like he's sort of dimension jumping and planet hopping and trying to like tie up loose ends. I swear there's a shot of what's the place called where they do the jump to get the Soul Stone or whatever it is. It looks like we're going back there. I swear you can see a shot of Black Widow. I'm going to have to go back to the trailer and check it out.
It's like he's looking at a It looks like he's looking at a trailer. I don't know if they're looking at his history or. It was really weird. It's like this doesn't seem what I thought it would be with the Loki series. I was underwhelmed with Loki. It cheapens the death. No one ever stated exactly. And I think at least with Black Widow, it's a prequel, and they've told us it's a prequel from day one. Again, I think they realized. I think that's probably, looking at the history of two companies, that's probably the first time Marvel reacted to Warner Brothers, which was when, like, okay, now we'll get our female film out, because they could have pulled the trigger on Black Widow 10 years ago, and they didn't. And they had to wait until Wonder Woman was the big hit it was to do it. So, yeah, that's my thoughts.
Star Wars, isn't it? No one's ever really gone by the same studio. We can't keep them dead, and I've always said this about the MCU. It's difficult to me for me to get emotionally attached to the MCU. I did like the end of Infinity War, but we knew they were all going to come back anyway. When they announce a whole list of films and sequels and things that have already been confirmed before, you know the character's not going to die, because you know that you've got whichever films are going to come back. And it's just the characters that did die, and we were like, oh, fair play, they actually took some chances, they're bringing them back anyway, so there's no stakes to it. Now the next one, I actually, in the slew of news that came out, this one has actually gone under the radar for me, so I haven't seen the trailer to this one just yet. This is Marvel's What If. This is coming out in the summer of 2021. My basic understanding is it's going to go back to some of these moments that we've seen in the MCU, and there's going to be like a different change is going to be made, or characters are going to be switched around. That's really all I know about it. So I actually missed the trailer for this thing. So I don't know if you've seen the trailer for this thing or can talk about it.
Yeah, I saw the trailer. The dynamic's really interesting, because they announced it at San Diego last year. Like, this is a Disney Plus animated series. It's there. Like, we've got we've got everyone pretty much doing a voice on it to a degree. Don't think they announced Robert Downey Jr. Or Chris Evans. I may be wrong. But it's just it's the what if concept, and it's really interesting. It reminds me of the Star Wars Visions thing. Like, you don't have to be tuned in, you don't have to be up to date. This is just going to be like something you might have seen on YouTube in passing. That's what if this scenario happens. So there's like a zombie Captain America that Bucky has to fight, and he's got the shields. They were just sort of jumping around the MCU. They've obviously got all the voice names. They've got Sam Jackson. I can't remember too many specifics, but obviously Chadwick Boseman recorded lines for it as well. So we'll get to him obviously later on. That'll be probably one of the last times we get to hear what he said. Mm-hmm. And there was another really big moment which has completely slipped my mind, but it's just a concept show, and I'm sure there'll be some interesting ideas. It might just be something that, you know, when it comes out, I might just watch it like in passing, like while I'm eating dinner or something. It's not a must watch, but it's just I think Marvel's reached that point in time where they can look back at something 10 years. We do with Star Wars. Like, you know, you get the memes where something happens and then it like cuts to like directed by George Lucas. Mm-hmm. It reminds me of one of those kind of memes, but as an animated series. There's probably going to be some interesting. I've actually just forgotten most of it. I won't lie. It looks okay. It looks okay.
Yeah, I was going to say. Well, that's another one to add to the list. So I think it's interesting concept. It's like the conversations that you have with your mates. It's like, oh, what would happen if this happened? And now we're getting just like a full series.
But then are we going to what if the what ifs? Like, what if this like it's like endless paradox, but
so what if Captain Marvel was actually a good film? That would be interesting. That's the universe I want to see. We're
going to talk about that soon, because we spoke about guys. We're going to fly through. I think we're going to fly through these bits, and then I think we'll group it. So they basically just confirm new release dates or casts. So it feels like one of them like videos where everyone has to like say everything as quick as they can. We're not going to do that. Turns out Shang-Chi has just finished filming. No one even knew it was in filming, I don't think. Mm-hmm. Wherever it was quiet and no one cared. That's going to get released on July the 9th, 2021, my birthday. Probably means we get it day earlier in England, so I won't be watching on my birthday, actually. Miss Marvel is currently filming, which we all knew about. That started filming now. That will come at the end of 2021 to Disney+. And this is where it gets tricky, and we're going to delve into this properly at the end. Miss Marvel will tie into Captain Marvel. Miss Marvel will be in Captain Marvel 2. And there was the pilot's daughter in Captain Marvel 1 who was about 6. She is in WandaVision, all grown up. Because obviously that was set in the 90s. This is WandaVision's obviously today. But she's now going to be in Captain Marvel 2, all grown up. So to watch Captain Marvel 2, you now need to watch Captain Marvel 1, WandaVision, Miss Marvel. We'll get to the issues with that at the end.
Oh, my brain.
Eternals, we already knew was coming out. They just randomly said the film spans thousands of years. So I don't really know I don't care.
I know nothing about Eternals.
Yeah,
so.
I know nothing. We know nothing. Hawkeye, they officially announced Haley Steinfeld as Kate Bishop. Release date to be confirmed. I mean, great announcement had it not have been spoiled by set photos when they started filming last week. Because everyone now knows, thanks to the glory of the internet. She-Hulk, it's a talking point. We'll do a talking point, shall we? She-Hulk series, I don't think people massively care about. Mark Ruffalo's returning, as you'd expect. It's got the word Hulk in it. But the guy who we didn't think would be returning is Tim Roth as Abomination.
Taking us back to 2008, The Incredible Hulk, which actually I really liked. It was the Ed Norton Incredible Hulk film. Wasn't perfect, but I enjoyed it when it came out. For the longest time, it seems like the hushed sort of relative that we don't talk about of the MCU. Is it even technically in the MCU? We had Thunderbolt Ross return in Civil War, and I'm not sure if he was in Infinity War. I can't remember.
Is it the funeral?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's like, well, that character came back, but we never go back to Liv Tyler. We never, different actor for Hulk didn't help. Different look of Hulk. Everything was completely different. I think the only mention they've made about Abomination was in like a short film with Agent Coulson mentions that he's still locked up or something like that. I know they've done the same with The Mandalorian. Was it the Mandarin? The Mandarin, they've said that the Mandarin, which caused havoc in Iron Man 3 and caused fan upset, isn't actually the real Mandarin, and the real one is out there somewhere. So
10 Rings.
I mean, yeah, exactly. And, with Tim Roth, like I enjoyed him in that film. I thought he was a good bad guy. I actually really liked the end punch him up with Hulk and Abomination. It's amazing to me we haven't got anything else related to the Hulk. I know he's been in the Avengers, but I think that's a rights issue, isn't it, with Paramount? And I don't think it's weird that Marvel can use him, but they can't make a solo film on him or something like that. I don't know. It's weird clauses and weird contracts and everything. But another bit of announcement, which I think has come out after that fact, is a character who might be appearing in She-Hulk, and that is going to be Charlie Cox, Daredevil. Is apparently going to be in She-Hulk. Now, I don't know much about the She-Hulk character, but apparently she's also a lawyer in the Marvel comics. So if that's an opportunity for Charlie Cox to come into that, they've mentioned that he's going to be in, or he's heavily rumored to be in, the Spider-Verse film as a cameo. And now I've heard that also they might be integrating him into She-Hulk as well. So I'm glad that he's still getting work. It'd be nice for all the other cast of the Defenders to get a look in as well and be integrated into it as well. You may as well. You've got established series that for the most part were great. But I don't know much about She-Hulk as a character. But it seems like they're linking it all into it, which is really cool of them, I guess.
Yeah, there's linking in. I'm just gonna keep going because I think we're gonna have the big conversation on each point of this.
Yeah.
Moon Knight. We know that Oscar Isaac's basically confirmed, but they didn't formally announce him. This is going to be a series, and Kevin Feige compared it to an Indiana Jones adventure. Now that struck me as strange because I don't know anything about Moon Knight. I'll be honest, but people dubbed him as like Marvel's Batman.
Yeah, I think he's a bit more violent. I think it's a bit more hard nailed. I think.
I'm just imagining like Batman running away from the boulder at the start of Indiana Jones, just like mercilessly like beating the shit into everyone as he's walking past. Secret Invasion series. Now at this point in time, I'd be far more excited to say Ben Mendelsohn's returning, but we're 2 hours 15 minutes into it, and to me this was just another Marvel announcement that happened. Secret Invasion, which is a humongous comic book event, which was a passing mention in a TV series announcement. That's Ben Mendelsohn and Sam Jackson. We'll be more excited if that's if Ben Mendelsohn was returning to Star Wars, which fingers crossed is also the case. And then we've got the two ridiculous ones. We've got Ironheart. This is another Disney Plus series. The Dominic Thorne invents the most advanced armor suit since Iron Man. And the next series is Armor Wars, where Iron Man tech falls into the wrong hands. It's Iron Man's worst nightmare. So we basically have 2 new series, and each of them is about Iron Man armor.
I was going to say, wasn't that the plot of like all of the Iron Man? Well, all of the Iron Man films, really, wasn't it?
This is my issue. Like Iron Man 1, he raises like I will be a pacifist, so my arm's against the wrong hands. Like Iron Man, like 1, 2, and 3, the wrong people get the armor. It's like I wonder if this make a good series. A, after he's dead, B, after we've milked him on Tom Holland, and C, just 2 series about Iron Man armor. Yeah, so forgive me for not being. We are at one of the 2 things I'm excited for that was announced. The Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special. They're going to film Guardians 3 as normal, but before they film that, literally within the same filming block. They're going to film a holiday special. Now, we had a really good time doing the Star Wars holiday special, the animated Lego one. Guardians of the Galaxy is the Star Wars of the MCU, they always says. It's going to be directed by James Gunn, written by James Gunn, everything James Gunn. This is definitely going to be taking the piss out of Star Wars to a new level. It's interesting there's a live action element, but of course they've said this is going to lead into Guardians of the Galaxy 3, so they will all tie in, and this will be the Christmas, essentially, the Thanksgiving, Christmas, whatever they want to pick, before Guardians 3. So this is December 2022, we're going to say. As I'm guessing Guardians 3 is now 2023. And as long as that, we're going to get a Baby Groot shorts across Disney Plus called I Am Groot.
You know, you anything baby Yoda, Baby Groot, just make him an infant, and you're raking the cash, Disney. So I know people. Well, actually, no, wasn't he? Didn't he become a teenage Groot again at the end of?
He was teenager in. Yeah.
I thought he became a teenager, like a strapping teenager.
Yeah, he was one of the many credit scenes of Guardians 2.
I guess this is a prequel then. This is going to be set in between that and oh my god, I'm losing track. We're losing track. Yeah,
we're almost there, Chris. We're almost there. The one I am excited for is Christian Bale in Thor, which we knew was happening. He's playing Gore the God Butcher. Now, one of my friends from our group, we used to go to watch every Marvel film together. There's just too many now, so obviously we haven't seen everyone together in about a year or two. But one of them texted me saying they'd read this comic story and they said Gore's a really cool character. Is an interesting story arc. All I want to see is angry Christian Bale, Terminator Salvation Christian Bale, hunting down Thor in a film. That's all I need. And it's Taika Waititi. The Taika Waititi element adds this new level to all of it. Taika Waititi directing Christian Bale is one of two potential scenarios. It's going to go wrong, and that makes it incredible, or it's just going to be damn incredible, because Christian Bale, we both love him. We both talk him up. I think he's a guy that's got a really good sense of humor, but there's probably like a couple of people that can get to it. Like, he seems like when he's just pressed, he either seems like he wants to stab them or he's having a good time with them. Google the Christian Bale singing the Powerpuff Girls song, for example. And they also announced yesterday, not officially, Jamie Alexander is returning as Lady Sif. You know, remember that one that didn't get killed by Hela?
That's some good news to me, because Live O'Brien was saying getting delirious with news. I was going to say, well, seeing that news there perked me up with Jamie Alexander coming back to it. That'll get your blood racing. I loved her character in the Thor films, and then she just disappeared. There was no explanation as to what happened to her at the beginning of. I actually really don't like that in the MCU. Weird tangent, but the ending of Thor 3 straight into Infinity War, there's a gap. There's a chunk that needs to be filled in there. Her absence was weird in Infinity War and Endgame, because you had every other character showing up apart from her, especially at the portal scene. Very strange. So I'm glad that they're going to do something with her character at least. I've given my thoughts on Taika Waititi. I wasn't keen on the take with Thor Ragnarok. I thought it was a bit too jokey. There wasn't really much tension or drama to it, but I like what he's done on Mandalorian. You still get the occasional bit where the jokes take, front and center a little bit, but we'll see what he can get done. I am looking forward to seeing Christian Bale in that film, actually. I think it could be really entertaining. Apparently, we're going to get more details soon on the new Blade film. It's going to complicate matters if we've got Mahershala Ali as both Blade and Cottonmouth in continuity, if they do bring in Luke Cage. And I think the same goes for another character in Luke Cage as well. I've forgotten the name of the actress. She was also in Civil War, I think, as Random Woman. And then she was like one of the main villains in Luke Cage. So that's strange. We've got Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, which sounds like some kind of wrestling event, doesn't it?
Thing. Yeah, that's
it's filming spring at Pinewood, and all the cast are returning. That's just going to be the third Ant-Man and the Wasp film. Didn't like the second one, but whatever. The character's entertaining. I guess we can say that, Black Panther 2, they've officially confirmed. We probably knew this anyway, that they're honoring the legacy, and they're not going to recast the character of Black Panther, which I think pretty much everyone guessed anyway. I think there are some interesting ways that the story could go with that, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do and how they continue on that legacy. That's coming out July 2022. And honestly, one of the best bits of news for me, and we thought this was going to happen for a long time anyway, Fantastic Four. So John Watts will direct. Remind me again of what John Watts has directed, because I can't remember off the top of my head. Quick Google search later. I think it's just great that we are. Oh, that's it.
He's doing the Spider-Man trilogy. Oh, that sounds horrible. There's only one Spider-Man trilogy. Sorry.
Yes, there is. Yes, there is. But it's nice that we're getting hopefully a more accurate reboot, I guess. The first two, when they came out, that was all we knew from superhero films, right? They weren't great when they came out. I actually really liked the casting of that film for the most part. Not too keen on Jessica Alba as Invisible Woman, though. Whatever that Josh Trank reboot was that we got in what was it, 2015, 2016? I can't even remember. This one needs to be, I can imagine visually, just like the costumes, the look of the Thing. We've had Thanos, we've had Incredible Hulk, just what they're able to do with CGI. Like, you could make the Thing look really great. I do applaud them, though, in those original two for getting him in a suit and trying to make that suit work. But I think this is going to be, like Korg, essentially, isn't it? It's just going to be this CGI character, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be motion capture. The Fantastic Four is amazing. I'm not going to lie, I was really disappointed it was on this casting thing, because we all knew it was going to get announced. Mm-hmm. I'm not normally one of them like go to Comic-Con things. I mean, I do go to them, but this is something which sort of deserved to be announced in Hall H. They all knew it was coming. Announce it with a cast. Maybe they'll do a cast this summer.
Or a picture or something of the main four lined up.
Yeah, exactly. And John Watts doing for Spider-Man, don't get me wrong, like, I've not been the biggest fan of those two films, quite blatantly and clearly. I'm excited for him to do something else, because at the core of it, he's in Sony's mess, and that's the way. Like, it's a kind of really polite get out of jail card, where it's you're in Sony's shadow, so just do the best you can. And he's had some good moments. Vulture was amazing. Mysterio was amazing. Didn't like what they did with the character, but I appreciate what he's done. But I can see how he's done Spider-Man in terms of the color, all that kind of production design. I think could work really cool for Fantastic Four. Mm-hmm. So I'm intrigued, and I don't think Kevin Feige is going to cock that up either. I love the first one of the original two. Right age to watch that film is probably the most important thing. Right age, and that was at mid-time. There wasn't great superhero films at that point in time, and they were so far and few that it was the way it was. But that's a big announcement. But that wraps off the Marvel stuff. Now we're going to end this with a very dangerous photo. That is, as we speak, is it a phase 4?
I think they've said phase 4, but we've said this. We think this is going to be more of an ongoing thing now. We don't think that it's going to be in. Yeah.
And you know what? This doesn't even have Guardians of the Galaxy 3 on it. Mm-hmm. This doesn't even have. Does it have Blade on it? Sorry, guys. I'm spending so much time.
Blade at the top. Yeah.
I mean, I've said to you before we hit live, my issue with the Disney Plus Marvel stuff is simply that the MCU is a phenomenal franchise. Financially, as production goes, the concept that they put everything into the shared cinematic universe that had never been done on film. And that's why it worked. In the next 5 years, look at 2012 to 2016, every other franchise is playing catch-up. There was a Ghostbusters cinematic universe. There's a Kaiju cinematic universe, which is getting paid off next year. Brackets, no, it won't. There's going to be a DC cinematic universe, which brackets has failed already. And everyone wanted to be the MCU. Early days of Star Wars, as you said, we've seen now the Star Wars side of it. We're seeing these templates be filled in, but it's not going to be you have to watch X, Y, and Z to understand A, B, and C. And I think that's what I'm taking away from the Star Wars announcements to Disney Plus. It's going to enhance your thoughts on them. The same way that Rebels and Clone Wars enhances the prequels or maybe Mando, but you can still watch that episode without knowing who Ahsoka is. It just won't mean as much. My key worry with Marvel now is I have to watch all of WandaVision. I have to watch Captain Marvel 1. I have to watch Miss Marvel to understand Captain Marvel 2. But to understand Captain Marvel 1, I already need to know. I guess it's set in the 90s. You don't need to know much. But that's set in phase 3 of a 20 franchise film. And then she rocks up in Avengers Infinity War. So what do I need? Sorry, Endgame. Do I need to watch Endgame to understand Captain Marvel 2? To understand Endgame, I must have seen the previous 20 films. Marvel, this to me is brackets their most ambitious schedule to date. Ambitious is the key word. If anyone could pull this off, it's Marvel. but I think they're going to lose a lot. I'm not going to say they'll lose fans. People forget the most important cinema attendees, the casual audience. It's not us. It's not us talking online. It's not you guys watching our videos online. It is the people that go to the cinema because there's a film out. You know, you look at these the reason cult films are cult is because the fans go and see them. Why did Solo make 300 million? Because only the hardcore Star Wars fans went. I wouldn't even say there was a boycott. I think most people saw it at least once, but it wasn't the normal Star Wars 5, 6, 7, 8. People picked Infinity War over Solo because the general audience are the ones that pay that money. The general audience are the ones that make the extra money. And I think they're going to get shut out Phase 4. I think it's tricky. I think Mandalorian's against Star Wars is a comparison. Mandalorian's fine. It's done what it's done. But I don't think you need to watch all 9 films to understand Mandalorian. I think it helps. But I know a lot of people that have used Mandalorian as their viewpoint into Star Wars and have gone and watched the films because they enjoyed the Mandalorian. I'm really worried for Marvel with this. And I shouldn't be because they've got a success rate in terms of like an overall franchise thing. But I think the Infinity Saga, I've said this many times to you, would have been the perfect way to end the MCU, or at least put it on the shelf for 10 years. I think that the Disney Plus stuff is too much too soon.
I think, well, only time will tell, but I do think there's probably going to be a cautionary tale in here somewhere. We might not see it now. We might not see it in 4, 5, 6 years' time, but I think there's definitely going to be a cautionary tale when it comes to Disney Plus, and certainly Star Wars and Marvel's overreach, because we're used to seeing, you brought up that graphic just a minute ago of all the films on the roster for Phase 4 of Marvel. We're used to seeing images like that. We've come to expect that from Marvel. They've been doing that probably since, Phase 2 onwards. But we're seeing images similar to that like Star Wars now, and their animated films and their shows. And I don't know if that model is sustainable. Now, the thing is, this has been true since the dawn of time, and not just with films, but with fashion, with music. Trends change. After a certain time, things become oversaturated. People lose interest. People grow up. There's different generations. And I think that we have seen one generation of the MCU end. And I think you always get that, whether it's long-running TV shows, cartoon series, whatever it happens to be. Going from my youth, for example, Power Rangers, Pokemon, you had different phases, and there was always a drop-off point for the people who were there originally. It always becomes too much. Tastes change, and I think we're going to see that. And also just the fact that the MCU now basically, and I think Star Wars might go this route as well, is basically become inaccessible to any newcomers. Because even if someone says now, like, where do I start? Say if they might not like Iron Man, they might not like, whichever character, or Thor or something, but they're being forced to watch it because it links in with... Basically, the films have been serving as a long-running TV show since 2008 almost, but it was almost... Even for us, we said that it was getting to the stage where it wasn't manageable, even when we were having like 3 films a year, and we were feeling the fatigue in the lead up to Infinity War, I think, or I certainly was anyway. But now you're throwing TV shows in, and we've kind of seen this as well, where we talked about fatigue when we had all the Marvel films were going on, and we were getting fatigued with them in terms of the film world. But in TV, we were also watching Arrow and Flash and God, and all of those other shows that CW were doing, which became too big, inaccessible. You had to plan, you had to schedule them. If you were late to the party watching something, then a couple of months later, there's been a new show come out that you need to watch, and it becomes too much to the point where you just go, I've got to take a step away from this. I can't. This is too much now. And just judging by that graphic, it's at that stage for me now. If everything is going to intrinsically link in, it's not even like a Netflix thing, right? Where you could focus in on the Netflix stuff. Even that I couldn't keep up with, even just on the Netflix stuff. I think crossing into the films, it's bold, and it is very much like a comic book in that way. Like, Loki taking off in one issue, and then Loki will get like a comic book series continuing on from that. It is very comic booky, but I just wonder how sustainable it's going to be. And that doesn't just go for Marvel. I think that also goes for Star Wars as well. I think there is a definite risk of oversaturation with the fan base, and the fact that you can't pick and choose really what you watch or what you focus on. If you're in it, you've got to be in it for everything. You've got to watch that one Baby Groot short film because that's going to link into Guardians 3 or something down the line. It's too much, I think. But
that's why the comic book comparison is good, because the thing people forget of comic books is How many times do they reboot the Justice League? Do they reboot comic series? Because the comics get out of hand. The film's going to get out of hand. This is going to get out of hand. Star Wars is interesting because there are some similarities. I do think still Star Wars is that case of you've got the core episodic films, you have the Mandalorian, and you can other things will help. Not enhance. They will enhance it. That's the purpose, right? I don't think the Marvel series are going to enhance anything. I think the Marvel series is you must watch this to get that. I don't think you will need to watch Lando to be able to watch A New Hope or Empire Strikes Back in theory, but it might give you a perspective on something. Solo, right? Solo is probably the best example because it's out. Mm-hmm. Solo is irrelevant to the core 9. Mandalorian right now is irrelevant to the core 9. But obviously we don't know when Mandalorian's finished or going to finish. But Solo, okay, we've had him win the Falcon, meet Lando, and be this guy. Did it change how I looked at A New Hope? No. But did it change how I saw Solo and Lando together? Yeah, I got a bit of history for the first time. And I don't think Marvel can do that. I think right now in time, Star Wars is obviously behind in terms of they've not done the live-action universe, right? That's the better way of putting it. Live-action cinematic universe. I don't think they will. I think they've learned a lesson with Solo. Obviously, there is a lot they've announced. So time, as you said, time will tell. We will find out for sure. I don't think Kenobi is essential watching to watch episode 4, but it's probably going to change how we view episode 4. In the same way, the prequels ultimately changed how original people watched the episodes too, because they're the definitive backstories to the characters they grew up with. But I'm scared of Marvel. Like the Disney animated stuff's fine. Like you've got the Pixar theory, but it's not the cinematic universe. That's more of this incredible theory that many people have wrote about over many years. And that's more Pixar doing Easter eggs at one another's productions more so than anything directly. Disney animated is fine, but it's this Marvel Studios that scares me because the problem is they're scary because of how successful they are. They've juggled. I mean, Phase 3 is pretty much the length of Phase 1 and 2. Got a great comment from Carl. He says, general audiences will be confused when Natalie Portman picks up thoughts. Hamo Kushi wrote it as well. It doesn't help she's been away from the franchise so long. So, looking at my shelf right now, Thor: The Dark World is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
It's the first film in Phase 2, wasn't it?
It's the second in Phase 2, the 9th film of 23 already released Marvel films. Let's bring that graphic back up. So that's 9 out of 23, right? How far down the line is it going to be when it comes out? That's 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. So then there'd have been 20 films between Thor 4 and Natalie Portman's last appearance. 20 films. Oh, no, I guess maybe Endgame she kind of counts. I don't know. But
that was a body double that, like, not specifically in camera, though, was it?
Yeah, and that's the thing, and it's dangerous territory. If anyone can pull off, it's Marvel, and I'll give them the benefit of the doubt right now, but I wouldn't say it's going to implode on itself, but I could see, certainly, let's say the Corona wasn't real, like one of them psychos, and say that, let's imagine Marvel makes the money they make today, still, every day. If suddenly, like, Captain Marvel 2 made, like, 600 million, and you've had to have watched, like, 3 different franchises and series, and Guardians 3 makes like 1.2 billion because all you've had to watch is the Guardians films. I think it's going to only affect productions within it. People go and see their favorites, but they will avoid it if they say you must watch X, Y, and Z before. Now, Infinity War was obviously a humongous success, but that was simple. Watch it all. This one isn't a watch all. This is watch these specific ones, not all of it. And personally, I mean, I love Marvel. I love what they've done. I've had a lot of enjoyment in cinema over the last sort of 10 plus years with it all. It's been phenomenal, but they're in a dangerous territory now. And the Disney Plus stuff is great. We're going to get this. We said Falcon and Winter Soldier is going to be phenomenal. We're looking forward to it. There is stuff we're looking forward to, but there's a lot of stuff as we just read all of that out. It's like passing sentences, and it will be a review on our channel down the line, but it's not going to be a build up. It's not going to be a hype. It's we've got to watch this one now to watch the next one. And if anything's imploding, it's Marvel. And I said Star Wars, they've got to learn from it because they tried to copy their Marvel model, realized quickly they can't copy that model. And this is probably the biggest announcement Star Wars has had as a roundup of the Thursday night. This is Star Wars' biggest announcement since the infamous Solo stuff. So, time will tell for both franchises. I trust, ironically, Marvel's got a better set piece, but I trust Star Wars is planned right now more so than the MCU's. And I've probably got not equal knowledge of Marvel to Star Wars. I know Marvel very well. I know the MCU very well. but selling it to a general audience, Marvel, I think, will struggle with right now compared to Star Wars. And again, because they've had The Mandalorian as an entry point for a lot of new people, they've been able to reinvent Star Wars. That's probably a better way of saying it. People are going in, watching The Mandalorian, maybe not watching the films. That is fine. Marvel, you can't just step in with WandaVision as your first. Yeah, I've just thought that. Like, how are you gonna? I could tell a mate, Star Wars. No, if you try to watch The Mandalorian, maybe. I say that's a good way to start. Don't have to watch the films. If you've got a mate that I want to watch the MCU, how do I begin? Oh, what about the new Disney show? I'd be like, ooh, can I watch one thing before it?
Oh,
sorry, no.
Let me tell you about
please.
Iron Man from 2008. But then it's like, do you watch them in chronological order? Do you go back to like the 90s and start with Captain Marvel? Because I wouldn't want anyone to start with Captain Marvel if I was showing them the MCU. But I think the trajectory is different across the board because I think, you had Marvel straight out the gate, massively successful and built and built and built, and it's continuing to build and ramp up to the point where it's going to collapse. Star Wars, it made a lot of money when it came out, but it has divided the fan base within its own property. So now it's kind of, they've got their cards on the table. It's like, right, we need to build that trust again. Let's get some new ideas in. So it feels like Marvel's doubling down on all the stuff because it's successful and they know people like it. Whereas Star Wars, they've got to come up with those fresh ideas.
Specific.
Exactly.
And like I said, time's the advantage, but it's going to be interesting. Like, take a back. Like, I love the kind of sad, nerdy, like, me, I love my box office numbers, stuff like that. We don't get viewing figures for streaming services. And that's what will be amazing. Netflix have the iconic cancelling you at the end of your second season syndrome. Obviously, Disney, we don't know what the story is. They've not got original stuff yet, but we'll find out in a couple of years if suddenly they're quiet about season 2s and whatnot. So
I will say that is going to be terrifying. Give it a few years. That's all I'm saying. Because what I think it's going to be is it's going to force people. It's going to be the only thing that people can watch. That's my biggest worry. It's going to eliminate choice and it's going to become obligation. And I think when that happens, then you've got problems. Now, I'm not saying that Netflix is going to go anywhere. I'm not going to say that Prime's going to go anywhere. I do genuinely think that you will continue to have those things. But if it does get to a point where we turn into sort of like this dystopian future where Disney is the only thing that we watch, it's going to be very, very terrifying. Now, that's sort of like the tinfoil hatty kind of stuff. As I say, I don't think streaming services are going to go anywhere. I don't even think Netflix is going to go anywhere before too long. I think there's a lot of film companies bought into it. I think it's a good platform for them. And it's nice to have variety. It's nice to have options. And as long as we have that, then that's fine. But it's just when we see these business models and stuff, you're seeing all the green come in for Disney. But it's just like, what's this going to mean for the future of just the film landscape? Really, is Disney just going to dominate? We've seen that in the last few years. They continue to buy studios and properties, and it doesn't look like they're going to be stopping anytime soon. So,
and to add to that as a final thing, Warner Brothers, they were the only ones that could have got close. And the one thing, Disney do have their fallouts, they do have their issues. They will sack people. They will be the corporate number if they have to do it, have the corporate message. You got it with the solo directors. You got it with many other people across many Disney properties, across multiple franchises. They never told 17 of their directors all their films are going to be on Disney Plus next year. No questions asked. It's job done. We released it via the internet. That's my issue, is that Disney do this corporate thing. It's really comparison to F1. Everyone said F1's boring because Lewis Hamilton Mercedes win every week. And they do. They win every week. They've got the best car in the history of the sport. They've got the best driver in the history of the sport as well. And it's Ferrari's job to catch up to them because they're the other big name. And Ferrari is shite. They've got a shit car and they've got great drivers, but they've got a piece of shit managing them. That's Warner Brothers right now. Someone needs to be at a level playing field. And there's a really good video probably going to come down from this. Warner Brothers are the only company that have the properties, that have had the properties, that have the directors, had the directors after the announcement to be, you know what, we will be equal to you. But to me, the streaming war died the moment Warner Brothers announced everything was going to be online. And then Disney respond with a video we've just discussed for 2 hours and 43 minutes.
Well, here's the thing. So in the future then, in Disney buying everything up, are we going to get to a point where Warner Brothers loses all credibility with its directors and crew?
I think they have.
People working for them. Their movies don't make money. They lose money. And then the looming shadow with the Mickey Mouse ears approaches and says... Why
the
don't we?
Death Star on
Why
Scarif.
don't we help? Come to your friend Disney. Why don't we help you out? Why don't we buy you out? You're in a bad situation. Come join us at Disney Plus, and then you get that new section. We had 20th Century Fox, and then boom, Warner Brothers at the side. Then we get the Avengers versus the Justice League movie? In actual fact, actually, the DC community is probably in better hands than Disney, actually, with the movie management. Who knows? But Disney's Batman, will we get that? Who knows? But it is terrifying, and not just for like TV, but just for the movie world in general. Even like cinemas at the moment have been questioned, specifically with Warner Brothers' announcement. Whether they're going to backpedal on that now, I don't know. I don't know whether they can backpedal on it.
I think so. Just a quick one, guys. If you haven't followed the news at home, I won't go through the whole thing, but Legendary have sent Warner Brothers legal documents because they were offered $250 million for the distribution rights for Godzilla. Warner Brothers said no, and then Warner Brothers told them it was going online on HBO Max. Denis Villeneuve, who's directing Dune, has said that Warner Brothers are $150 billion in debt. He says that their films can make no money, only the streaming service. Mulan has showed that streaming services can't make money. Showing them for free, there is a no return on anything next year at Warner Brothers. They're taking an entire loss. I implore everyone to read the Denis Villeneuve article that came out this weekend. He's as black and white as needs to be. You can read the Christopher Nolan one. He speaks about the unions, how everyone's jobs are impacted within the industry, not just directors, producers, from actors through to grips, through to anyone involved in any role on set. They have no future under Warner Brothers. And it's exactly what he said. These directors, they're not going to pick Warner Brothers now. They've lost the trust. It's up to someone to come in. Paramount keeps selling all their projects. I don't know what's going to happen, but I think we're in a really interesting climate for the next month legally wise, because more Warner Brothers stuff comes out every day. I think they're going to have to backpedal. We've seen Warner Brothers backpedal on a lot of things before. And one of the final things I'll say is that Disney changed a lot of Marvel release dates for this investor call. 4 of them are at the same weeks as Warner Brother long-term calendar releases. We all remember what happened when that lowly ambitious Captain America versus Iron Man film decided to change its opening date to the same day as Batman versus Superman. It was Warner Brothers that quickly moved. It wasn't Disney. So I think there's a very interesting scenario. There's a big game of chess being played, and Bob Iger's had checkmate for about 4 years, and today he's just said it out loud. So that's my kind of final thoughts on the investor meeting. It's a very interesting time. It's been a stunning video to do. We thought this could be an hour and a half. How wrong were we? But yeah, I've got absolutely nothing more I can add to this.
I don't think we've got the energy to even add any more.
I think Marvel's the face. I'm glad we started with Lucasfilm because that's been the funnest discussion by a mile. And Marvel's just deflated it. And it's like that black looming cloud, as you mentioned, the Death Star on Scarif of the years. That's the MCU, and I'm the Krennic underneath it.
But almost 3 hours in length. Big thank you to Life of Brian Cole for being just as steadfast as us, just getting through it. We really appreciate you tuning in, being loyal viewers of the channel. And of course, we're opening the discussion to you guys now. Let us know some of your favorite announcements, things that you're concerned about, the ramifications of this, or anything that you're not particularly excited about, anything you like regarding this whole announcement, all of the announcements, everything at Disney. Please do let us know. And don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe as well. If you'd like to follow us on social medias as well. Yes, more Disney. Tron this week, retro reviews. I believe we're pre-recording those, but we will be around on the chat to take you guys' comments. It's the first time I'll be watching the films. We'll be doing reviews on Tron and Tron Legacy as a kind of special little 10-year anniversary for Tron Legacy. We'll be discussing both of those on those 2 days at the bottom of the screen right there. And we have loads more content coming out December as well. We have more retro reviews, not just the Tron films, but we also have Creed, which we're going live with on Tuesday. And we have 2 of those to get through, the 2 Trons to get through. And then we're devoting almost like the tail end of the month to something else, which we're not going to give away just yet, but we do have something special planned for the tail end of there. As always, because we announce videos, we even do videos like this where this wasn't on the schedule. We didn't have this planned, but we threw it out there. And the best way to stay updated with all of those videos, even if we go at late notice, is on Facebook at Cinema Savvy, Twitter at Cinema_Savvy. And of course, if you'd like to pick up any merch, we have the TeePublic link in the description down below. You can pick up some. Speaking of description down below, I am going to go back through this video. I'm going to put timestamps on this thing for each of the sections. We don't want you to slog through a 3-hour video to find a specific bit of news. This was great. We are both very tired, but once again, a big thank you to everyone that's tuned in, and we will see you guys on Tuesday. Take care, everyone.